Chapter 428. Xianxiancheng. The backyard of the city lord's mansion. A maid in azure clothes moved lightly and quickly walked into the courtyard. In the backyard, a woman in white was sitting under an osmanthus tree, fiddling with the strings of the violin, but the sound of the violin was erratic under her fiddling, showing that the plucker's mind was not on the guqin at all. Sect Master. The maid in blue walked to Qi Yao's side and called out in a low voice. Qi Yao didn't lift her head, and asked softly, "Are you gone?" The blue-clothed maid nodded. "Well, let's go." Zheng. The string suddenly broke, but Qi Yao didn't feel anything. Half an hour. Qi Yao just stood up slowly. She looked at the direction where Chen Daoxian left, and finally made up her mind. "I've made up my mind, I'm going to Liangjiuan." Young sect master? The blue-clothed maid's face suddenly turned pale. She didn't understand why the young sect master would have such absurd thoughts. Liangjiuan has always been a taboo word for the monks of Fengyun realm. Few monks from Fengyun realm dare to take the initiative to go to Liangjiuan. If it weren't for the fact that Tianzuan city forced the cultivation forces above the first class in Fengyun realm, enough monks must be dispatched to Liangjiuan to guard each year, and no one would want to go to that place. In the eyes of the high-level cultivators of Fengyun realm, although Liangjiuan has some opportunities, compared with these ethereal opportunities, the danger of Liangjiuan is much greater. Compared with the war that broke out between the two worlds, the sect war in the Fengyun world can only be regarded as a small fight at best. It is said that the war between Qianyuan Jianzong and Xianqing Dao League is already the most fierce battle in the battle between the forces of Fenjianji Zongmen. But in this war, how many nascent soul monks died from the beginning to the end? According to the statistics of the Qianyuan sword sect, in the battle between the two sects that lasted for hundreds of years, the total number of Yuanning true monarchs who died in the battle was only a few dozen, and less than 100. Generally speaking, as long as the monks on one side are willing to surrender, the other side will choose to accept it rather than kill them all. But if the Yuanning Xinjuan of the two sects were placed on the battlefield outside the two realms, it is estimated that they would not be enough for a small-scale offensive and defensive battle. Liangjiuan is the real meat grinder for high-level monks. The high-level monks with power and status in the Fengyun realm are just a resource that can be consumed on the battlefield outside the two realms' abyss. In this situation, how many high-level monks from Fengyun realm dare to go to Liangjiuan? In addition to the top-level power children who took root in Liangjiuan, there are very few monks in Fengyun realm who are willing to take the initiative to guard Liangjiuan. As for Jindan cultivators like Qi Yao, it is extremely rare to be willing to go to Liangjiuan. Jindan cultivator can barely be called a high-level cultivator in the Fengyun realm, but can only be called cannon fodder in the battlefield outside the two realms' abyss. Facing the endless army of demons, ordinary Jindan cultivators may not even be able to turn a single wave out. In the courtyard, Qi Yao glanced at her maidservant, then glanced at the direction of Qianyuan Jianzong, and said with a sad face, "There is nothing worth lingering on here. It's better to do my best for this world that gave birth to me and raised me. My last effort. Xiaolan, I've already figured it out, so I don't need to persuade me." Looking at Qi Yao's resolute expression, the maid named Xiaolan opened her mouth, but she didn't say anything after all. Leave Xianxiancheng. Chen Daoxian went all the way east, and continued to perform teleportation in the direction of Tianyangzong. After breaking through the nascent soul period, Chen Daoxian's divine consciousness shrouded the area and transformed again. From the original more than 2,300 miles, it soared nearly 10 times to more than 20,000 miles. The strength of this kind of consciousness has already surpassed that of ordinary monks who have just broken through the nascent soul stage. Chen Daoxian knew that this was the result of his cultivation of the Divine Sea chapter. If it weren't for the short time he had been cultivating the Divine Sea chapter, his current strength of consciousness would probably be comparable to that of ordinary Yuanshan Daojun. Along the way, Chen Daoxian was in a frantic hurry. Feeling a little heavy, Chen Daoxian vaguely guessed the reason for the conflict between Qi Yao and Fei Chenxue. But in the face of this evil fate, as a party, he could neither persuade nor make any unrealistic promises to Qi Yao. Simply he chose to escape, and chose to ignore this close friend in Xianxiancheng. But even though others escaped, the guilt in my heart could never be let go. Although he married concubine Chenxue, the main purpose was for the Chen family. But he did fail Luo Li, And he also failed Qi Yao, who had always had a deep-rooted love for him. Although he was affectionate towards Qi Yao and never made any promises, it did not mean that he could hurt each other so much. It is conceivable that Chen Daoxuan's marriage with concubine Chen Xue has dealt a great blow to Qi Yao. My most respected master robbed my most beloved man. This kind of blow, I am afraid that any woman in the world will not be able to accept it. Feel sorry, Chen Daoxian whispered softly, and then his figure disappeared again. Tianyinzong. As a second-rate sect on the border of Xianyunzhu, Tianyinzong has always been on good terms with Qianyuan Jianzong. Although the last raid on the Xianqing Dao League, Tianyinzong, like the other two sects, was desperately dragging the Qianyuan Jianzong's hind legs, but these actions were carried out secretly on the surface. The two sides have maintained a fairly friendly relationship. Therefore, as soon as Chen Daoxian set foot on the giant immortal city 1000 formation city under the gate of Tianyinzong Mountain, he received the highest standard of reception. The suzerain of Tianyinzong personally led a group of nascent soul elders of Tianyinzong, lined up in the air to greet him. Viewed from a high altitude, the buildings in Thousand Array City are like a giant gossip formation, and this giant gossip formation can be divided into 1,000 formations. Therefore, this immortal city is also known as the Thousand Array City. Although the Thousand Array City is very simple compared to the Tianyinzong's Mountain Protection Formation and the Qianyuan Jianzong's Mountain Protection Formation. But as far as the immortal city is concerned, this is already the immortal city with the strongest formation defense among all the immortal cities that Chen Daoxian has seen. Even Zhenan Xiancheng, which had shriveled him before, was not as good as the defensive formation of Thousand Formation City. Sect Master Zhou, stay safe. Over the Thousand Formation City, Chen Daoxuan's escape light stopped at a distance of about 100 meters from the sect master of Tianyinzong, and then thanked the other party. This time, Chen Xian thanked the Zhou sect master for borrowing the formation. Seeing Chen Daoxian, the color of amazement in the eyes of Tianyinzong sect master disappeared in a flash. It has only been a few years, and the other party has actually broken through to the nascent soul stage. At this moment, Sect Master Zhou of Tianyinzong couldn't help but think of the warning words that Yi Qianqi said to their three major sections. This child is the biggest worry of all sections. It's a pity, this subclimate has become. The sect master of Tianyinzong sighed inwardly, but his face did not show at all. Instead he showed a warm and hospitable look. Coupled with his image of immortal style and bones, he looks like a master of Taoism. Fellow Taoist Chen is too polite. The sect master of Tianyinzong cupped his hands and said with a smile, last time we joined forces to break the ambition of the Xianqing Dao Alliance. Speaking of which, the two of us can be regarded as a comrade-in-arms friendship. In addition, Qianyuan Jianzong has always been on good terms with my Tianyinzong, so fellow Taoists must not be separated from this old man. Sect Master Zhou said that it was Chen who was outside. The two chatted and smiled at each other. As for the fact that the opponent sold his teammates in battle, Chen Daoxian thought it had never happened and never mentioned it. And the sect master of Tianyinzong also showed that it was as if the two really joined forces to defeat the enemy back then, and he almost didn't hang up with Chen Daoxian and reiterated their comrade-in-arms relationship. Thousand Array Immortal City, in an immortal mansion. The guest of honor is seated. Chen Daoxian didn't care about greetings and asked directly, Zhou sect master, this trip to Wuji Xianmen is the first time for Chen to go to a place worth noting. Heard. The sect master of Tianyinzong pondered for a moment, then said, Wuji Xianmen is the first sect in the Phoenix Meteor Realm, occupying the most vast territory in the central province of Xianyun continent. Under his command there are many immortal kingdoms, and there are countless high-level monks. If it weren't for the fact that Wuji Xianmen didn't have the Heavenly Venerate, I'm afraid it would be one of the most powerful forces in Heavenly Venerate City. Hearing these words, Chen Daoxian suddenly showed a surprised expression. Originally in his heart, no matter how powerful Wuji Xianmen was, it was only a first-class sect in Fengyun realm. But listening to Tianyinzong's sect master, it seems that this Wuji Xianmen is no less powerful than any top power except that there is no Tianzuan in charge. The reason why the other party was not classified as a top-level force was just the lack of a Heavenly Venerate transcending tribulation. Seeing the doubts on Chen Daoxuan's face, the sect master of Tianyinzong continued, Because the Wuxia holds the only space teleportation formation in the Phoenix Meteor Realm that connects the Phoenix Meteor Realm and the Two Realms Abyss. Therefore, the number of monks who go to Wuxia every day is extremely large, and among these monks, the ones with the lowest cultivation base are probably not under the nascent soul stage. Chen Daoxian had expected this. In the Phoenix Meteor Realm, those who dare to take the initiative to go to Liangjiyuan must at least have the cultivation base of nascent soul. Otherwise, in the battlefield outside the territory, it is very likely that they will become cannon fodder. Even an ordinary nascent soul cultivator is nothing more than an advanced cannon fodder on the battlefield outside the Two Realms Abyss. My Tianyinzong and Wuxia are connected to this space teleportation formation. Speaking of which, it was a patriarch of the sect who went to Liangjiyuan and established it with Wuxia. Seemingly remembering something, Sect Master Zhou stroked his beard lightly and said with a smile, "When the Qinyuan sword sect rushed to aid Liangjiyuan, it was also our Tianyinzong space teleportation formation, but it's a pity." The sect master of Tianyinzong shook his head. Cough cough. Seeing that the sect master of Tianyinzong was making a good impression again, Chen Daoxian couldn't help coughing. Sect Master Zhou immediately reacted and laughed loudly. Alas, when people are old, they like to recall the past years. After speaking, Sect Master Zhou said again, "Chen Daoyu goes to Wuxia, and there are not many things that need to be paid attention to. Cultivator, going back and forth between Fengyun Realm and Liangjiyuan. Therefore, Wuxia management of external monks is very loose. As long as fellow Daoist Chen does not take the initiative to cause trouble, there will be basically no problems." Hearing these words, Chen Daoxian nodded slightly. He was worried that there were some taboos in this Promise Immortal sect and violated other people's taboos on other people's territory. This was no joke. Chen Daoxian is not yet arrogant enough to dare to spread wildness on the site of the first sect of Fengyun Realm. After talking about Wuxia, the sect master of Tianyinzong looked at Chen Daoxian and said sincerely, "Daoyu-chan, this old man has an unkind request, please don't refuse." Heard. Chen Daoxian was non-committal, just quietly waiting for the next chapter of the Tianyinzong sect master. Zhou Zongzhu continued, "I know that after Qinyuan Jianzong defeated Xianqing Dao League, it was already the largest sect in a radius of tens of millions of miles. Now, with the help of Daoyu-chan, it is just around the corner for Qinyuan Jianzong to become a first-class sect. The old man hopes that if Qinyuan Jianzong can really become a first-class sect in the future, please also help me Tianyinzong for the sake of my two sects' friendship." Chen Daoxian did not expect that this time he simply borrowed from Tianyinzong, but inadvertently got Tianyinzong's surrender. But thinking about it carefully, Tianyinzong must have seen who will be the ruler of this borderland of Xianyun continent in the future. Sect Master Zhou's request was written down by Chen, but for the Qinyuan sword sect, Chen cannot be the master for the time being. When I can make the call in the future, Zhou's request will be fulfilled by Chen. Having said that, Chen Daoxian gave the other party a meaningful look. Seeing this look, the sect master of Tianyinzong immediately understood, and immediately stood up and bowed in response. Then this old man would like to thank Alliance Master Chen. Sect Master Zhou doesn't need to be too polite. Chen Daoxian helped each other, and immediately, the two looked at each other and smiled. Accidentally obtained Tianyinzong's secret surrender, which Chen Daoxian never expected. Perhaps the sect master of Tianyinzong was stimulated by Chen Daoxian's terrifying talent, and wanted to take a gamble with concubine Chen Xue. In short, Chen Daoxian was very satisfied with this trip to Tianyinzong. Although Tianyinzong only secretly surrendered, as long as Chen Daoxian has always shown this amazing talent, as long as Chen Daoxian can break through to the Yuanshan stage, the secret surrender of Tianyinzong at this time will turn into a swaggering surrender. There is nothing shameful about finding a second-rate sect as a backer for a second-rate sect. The disciples of Tianyinzong would not have any resistance. On the contrary, in Fengyun Realm, many first-class sects simply do not look down on those second- and third-rate cultivation forces. Others are rushing to take refuge, and those first-class sects do not take it seriously. Just like Wuxia in the Fengyun world, I don't know how many second-rate sects want to take refuge in it. Even, there are many first-class sects who want to take refuge in Wuxia as their affiliated forces. But the Promise Immortal sect couldn't take it seriously. So far, Wuji Xianmen has clearly recruited no more than 10 affiliated forces. For the most powerful first-class sect in the Fengyun world, there are simply too few affiliated forces. Even if it is the Qianyuan sword sect, there are also the major monster races of Wan Xinghai as subsidiary forces. Although the affiliated forces of Qianyuan Jianzong are a bit insignificant, but that is because Qianyuan Jianzong was defeated in Wan Xinghai and has been trying hard to accumulate strength. Now Qianyuan Jianzong and Xianqing Daomen have completely defeated each other. If it wasn't for the ban issued by Tianzuan City, Qianyuan Jianzong would definitely destroy the Xianqing Dao League in one fell swoop. At that time, the surrounding cultivation forces will all be rushing to join the Qianyuan sword sect. This is the way of survival in the Phoenix Meteor world. There is nothing shameful or shameful. 7017K. Chapter 429. The Phoenix Meteor realm is vast, of which the Xianyun continent is the largest, and it is the center of the world. Xianyun continent is vast, with a radius of hundreds of billions of miles. On the Xianyun continent, there are many sects and families are rampant. Among the countless cultivation forces, Wuji Xianmen is the most powerful. The Wuji Xianmen sits on the fertile soil of the central state of Xianyunzhu, with a vast territory and countless mortal kingdoms under its command. The surrounding forces facing the behemoth Wuji Xianmen all bow their heads and serve as ministers. The Zomen headquarters of Wuji Xianmen was established in a country called Su Kingdom. Compared with the country of Izumo, which is located in the northwest corner, the country of Su does not know how many times more than the former in terms of territory and population. Compared with Su Kingdom, Izumo Kingdom is the smallest country, not worth mentioning. As for the more remote Wuxia, in the eyes of the people of Su, it is a wild place overseas, and it should be uninhabited. Kyoto, the capital of Su State. A white figure suddenly appeared from a large space teleportation formation. Walking out of the space teleportation formation, Chen Daoxian waited for the dizziness in his head to gradually disappear. The shock in Chen Daoxian's heart could not be concealed. How far have I teleported here? Chen Daoxian was speechless in his heart. With his accomplishments in the laws of space, he would actually feel dizzy after taking a space teleportation array once, which shows how exaggerated the distance of this space teleportation is. Shaking his head, Chen Daoxian threw the distracting thoughts out of his mind, raised his head, and looked at the scene in front of him. Compared with the immortal city he has seen before, the immortal city in front of him is not too surprising. The only thing that makes Chen Daoxian feel wrong is that he is here, with a sense of restraint all the time oppressing him. Chen Daoxian frowned, and then secretly started the space law. What a strong forbidden space formation! Chen Daoxian was shocked. Generally speaking, it is understandable to set up a forbidden air formation in Xiancheng, but the forbidden air formation in this immortal city not only prohibits the cultivator from flying, but also prohibits the cultivator from using space teleportation. In other words, in this immortal city, Chen Daoxian could not only fly but also teleport. For a monk who is used to using teleportation to hurry and escape, this immortal city is simply a nightmare. No wonder he felt uncomfortable. Chen Daoxian just walked out of the range of the space teleportation array. A trail with a bun on his head and a jade hairpin inserted into it trotted towards Chen Daoxian's position. Chen Daoxian looked at it intently, and his heart couldn't help being horrified. Cultivator Jindan. In front of this trail, the Taoist age will never exceed 100, and it is actually a real person of Jindan. Just when Chen Daoxian was shocked, Xiao Dao had already walked up to Chen Daoxian and respectfully bowed to him, saying, "This true monarch is polite. Pin Dao is a disciple of Wuji Xianmen. I wonder what true monarch ordered?" Holding back the shock in his heart, Chen Daoxian said calmly, "You are being polite, fellow Daoist." Chen Daoxian cupped his hands. "This is the first time I have set foot in the Su country. I would like to ask my fellow Daoists to introduce me to the customs of the Su country." Hear this. There was no change in the little Taoist priest's face. Obviously for Xiao Dao, who has been in charge of reception work in this teleportation array all the year round, he has seen too many unfamiliar true monarchs. True monarchs like Chen Daoxian, who came to Su for the first time, were always there every day. He has long been surprised. "True monarch, are you visiting Su country or going to Liangjiuan?" Hearing this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help frowning. Is there any difference between the two? That's right, if the true monarch just came to Su country to travel, you can find a restaurant or immortal mansion to stay at will. But if you go to Liangjiyuan, you need to go to the city lord's mansion to register and line up. Registration queue? This is the first time Chen Daoxian has heard this familiar word since his practice in this world. In the last life, check-in queues were very common. But in this world, due to the existence of formations and magical instruments, coupled with the powerful consciousness of monks, they can handle things very quickly, and there is very little time to register and queue. The little Taoist seemed to see the puzzled look on Chen Daoxian's face and continued, there is only one large space teleportation formation from Su country to Liangjiyuan, because every time it is activated, it requires a lot of resources. Therefore, unless there are special circumstances, this teleportation formation will only be activated every 5 years. Now, this teleportation formation has only been activated for 2 years since the last time. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian finally knew why he had to make an appointment in a space teleportation formation. According to this little Taoist priest, the space teleportation formation will be activated once every 5 years. If you don't make an appointment, Chen Daoxian will definitely not be able to sit. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian calmly took out a storage ring, handed it to the little Taoist priest, and said, "Dare to ask friends, what is there to say about this registration queue?" The little Taoist priest took the storage ring handed over by Chen Daoxian, and his consciousness swept away, and a bright smile appeared on the originally indifferent face. "There's something to be said about it," the little Taoist smiled and said. "This space teleportation array from Su country to Liangjiyuan is said to be registered and queued, but in fact, if Taoist friends really go to queue, I am afraid that they will not be able to line up in this life." "Oh." Chen Daoxian raised his brows. The little Taoist continued, "If you can trust the poor Taoist can help introduce the elders who preside over this space teleportation array, but you must prepare a sum of money in advance. I don't know how much I need to prepare next?" Chen Daoxian said indifferently. The little Taoist reached out his hand quietly, gestured with 3 fingers, and said, 300 powers of creation heard. Chen Daoxian took a deep breath. This dog is greedy for talent, it should be killed. This space teleportation formation in Su country is the only space teleportation formation connecting the Phoenix Meteor realm and the True Demon realm. There are not many high-level monks from Fengyun realm who rushed to Liangjiyuan. People from Wuxia actually dared to fill their own pockets and beat the bones and marrow of these monks who rushed to Liangjiyuan. Such behavior is really disgusting. A small elder who oversees the space teleportation formation is so greedy. Peeking into the spot and seeing the leopard, it can be seen how corrupt the Wuxia, which is known as the first sect of the Phoenix Meteor realm, has become corrupted. However, although Chen Daoxian was despised, he couldn't change anything. Half an hour. Chen Daoxian nodded. Then I will trouble fellow Taoists. Good to say. A bright smile appeared on the little Taoist priest's face again. The capital of Su State. In a magnificent palace. A young monk with blue hair hanging down his shoulders and wearing a loose Taoist robe is sitting at the table, holding a jade fold in his hand, and his consciousness is immersed in it, and he is slowly checking it. Beside him, a grizzled, spirited old man stood quietly. Humph! With a cold snort, the bright light formation in the hall swayed violently, as if it would dissipate at any time. The old man's expression didn't change, as if he just snorted, not his young master, but a stranger. Old Wu, you said that these untouchables of Sini religion, how come you can't kill them all? The old man surnamed Wu finally spoke at this time and said, Young master has imposed too much tax on Qishui kingdom, so it is common sense that Sini religion can take this opportunity to confuse the monks of Qishui kingdom. The old man surnamed Wu did not give face to the young master. He spoke succinctly and pointed to the pain point. Am taxing those untouchables too heavily? Hearing the old man's words, the young cultivator was even more angry. Who do these untouchables rely on to be able to practice peacefully in the Fengyun realm? It's not a big sect like my Wuji Xianmen. If it weren't for us sitting in Liangjiyuan, the real monsters in the real demon world would have been raging in the Fengyun realm long ago, and they would not pay the tax when they wanted to. Hearing this, the old man shut up again. Glancing at the old man, the young cultivator closed the jade folder, rubbed his eyebrows and said, Old Wu, how are the resources for my trip to Liangjiyuan this time? It is about 145,000 less powerful than the planned resources, and 43 points of spirituality, heard. The young cultivator stood up and muttered, "The gap is huge. It seems that the formation will be opened after 3 years, and I can't go." The old man surnamed Wu nodded. "Liangyuan is extremely dangerous. If you are not prepared enough, even with the strength of the young master, there is a risk of falling. It is the right choice to take it easy." Hearing this, the young cultivator shook his head. "Unfortunately, if I could borrow a pure young immortal artifact from the Zhongmen Chuanbao Pavilion, it would be enough to burst into a strength comparable to that of a fifth-layer Taoist in the world. At that time, how can you use such a hard search for resources to create a Taoist bodyguard? Pure young immortal artifact." Hearing this level of treasure, the old man surnamed Wu shook his head. Since the ancient Mahayana true immortals collectively ascended to the upper realm, the pure yang fairy artifacts left in this realm are basically in a state of only decreasing and not increasing. If you want to borrow immortal tools from Chuanbao Pavilion, unless you can break through to the fifth-layer realm of the world, young master. The fifth floor of the world. Hearing this, the young cultivator shook his head. "If I can reach this state, I can directly become the first sequence heir of the sect master, so I don't need to borrow an immortal weapon. The old guys in the sect did not directly send immortals to me to protect the Tao." Hearing these words, the old man surnamed Wu fell silent again. The fifth floor of the world is a hurdle. After the cultivator's Tao realm breaks through to the world realm, he will encounter 2 thresholds. The first threshold is the 3rd level of the world realm. The second threshold is the 5th floor of the world. Generally speaking, the Yuanying cultivator broke through to the Yuanshan stage, and basically the Tao realm was at the level of the 1st and 2nd layers of the world realm. This is also the realm of the great Tao that ordinary Yuanshan Daojun can achieve. As for the 3rd layer of the world realm, even for Yuanshan Daojun it is not an easy thing to break through. Once Yuanshan Daojun breaks through to the 3rd floor of the world, he can instantly become the mainstay of Yuanshan Daojun, or the elite. The Yuanshan Daojun on the 1st and 2nd layers of the world realm, when facing the Daojun on the 3rd floor of the world realm, usually loses after 3 or 5 strokes. The gap between the two is huge. As for the 5th layer Daojun of the world realm, his strength will take a big step forward. Regardless of other external factors, the 3rd level Taoist of the world realm basically has no room for resistance after encountering the 5th layer Taoist of the world realm. Capture or kill, it's all in the opponent's mind. In the hall, just when the young monk was talking to the old man surnamed Wu, a female cultivator in the nascent soul stage walked in quickly. "Linger." Seeing Yuanying female cultivator, the young cultivator stopped the discussion with Wu Lao, looked at the visitor with a smile, and waved to her. The Yuanying female cultivator named Linger walked quickly to the young cultivator and sat directly on the other's lap, ignoring the existence of the old man next to her. The young cultivator put his arms around the waist of the Yuanying female cultivator, took a deep breath greedily between her hair, and said, "Aren't you retreating? Why did you come to see me?" Heard. This female cultivator named Linger had a charming look on her brows. If Chun Daoxian was present, even if he could recognize it, this female cultivator named Linger was actually the same as the Xiling fairy he had rescued in Izumo before, and she also had a mysterious body of Juin. With such a treasured body, it is no wonder that this young Taoist loves this Linger so much. "Young master, the slave family has good news to tell you." "Good news?" The young monk put Linger down gently. "What good news?" I saw Linger pursed her lips and smiled. Without speaking, she took out a dark and heavy piece of wood directly from the storage ring. 9 secluded soul tree. The young cultivator and elder Wu looked at each other with a look of surprise in their eyes. But soon, the surprise was hidden by the young monk. He looked at the 9 nether-like soul wood floating in the air, and said indifferently, "Fellow Taoist is lucky to be able to live in the 9 nether soul tree with the cultivation base of nascent soul, and escape death." Death. The words fall. In the 9 secluded soul tree, a transparent figure suddenly appeared. It was Yi Tianqi, the leader of the Xianqing Dao Alliance who abandoned Yin and fled that day. However, the appearance of the leader of the Xianqing Dao Alliance is a bit miserable now. Not only has the body and Yuanying been lost, but even the soul has suffered irreparable injuries. If he hadn't lived in the 9 nether soul cultivation wood, with his injuries, his soul would have been scattered long ago. Yi Tianqi, the leader of the Xianqing Dao Alliance. Meet the seniors. Yi Tianqi respectfully bowed to the young monk. When the young monk saw this, his face was unmoved. He had never even heard of the so-called Xianqing Dao Alliance, but if he wanted to come to a force that could be the leader of a nascent soul cultivator, it was probably just a small second-rate force in some corner of Xianyun continent. For the young cultivator, this second-rate force, he only needs to move his mouth. He can send his subordinates to easily crush him, which is not worth mentioning at all. Seeing that the young cultivator was unmoved, Yi Tian was surprised. Reporting to the seniors, the juniors are here to present treasures to the seniors. Oh, a gift. The young monk chuckled. Where's the treasure? Yi Tianqi felt a chill in his heart and said bravely, the treasure is not on me, but I know where the treasure is. With your strength, senior, it is easy to get the treasure. Hear this. The young cultivator lacked interest, with a trace of dissatisfaction on his face, looked at Linger and said, is this the trash you introduced? Hearing this, Linger immediately shook the young monk's arm and said coquettishly, young master, calm down. Linger just saw that this person could actually travel from the battlefield outside the territory and return to the Fengyun realm, so she was curious to bring him over to the young master. Discerned. What? Who knew that the young cultivator was shocked when he heard this? He turned his head sharply and looked at Yi Tianqi. Is what she said true? You drove the world across the battlefield outside the territory, and you haven't died yet? Thinking of his tragic experience during this period, Yi Tianqi nodded and said bitterly, yes, this junior is the one who controls the world, walks through the battlefield outside the territory, and then takes the space teleportation array to return to the Phoenix meteor realm. Sharp. The young monk gave him a thumbs up. 7017K. Chapter 430. Boom. While the two were talking, a roar suddenly sounded in the capital of Su Kingdom, and the entire immortal city trembled. Inside the hall, the young monk frowned. After a short period of time, a monk wearing black armor and a black mask suddenly appeared in the hall. Seeing the young cultivator in the golden robe, the black-armored cultivator immediately knelt on the ground and lowered his head. Young master. Xianyi, what's going on? It's a new dog. The black-armored monk lowered his head. It's these scumbags again. The young cultivator became a little excited when he heard the word Xiniajao. He waved his hand suddenly. Find them and then kill all these bastards. Yes. After the black-armored cultivator finished speaking, his figure suddenly disappeared in the hall. On the side, Yi Tianqi looked at the scene in front of him, and his heart suddenly became even hotter. A dignified Yuanshan Daojun actually gave this golden-robed young cultivator such a big gift. It can be seen that this young cultivator's status in Wuji Xianmen is much higher than what Linger, the female cultivator who introduced him, said. Thinking of this, Yi Tianqi's eyes burst into an unprecedented light. Qinyuan Sword Sect. Feichen Snow. You are waiting. Yi Tianqi roared wildly in his heart. The capital of Su State. After leaving a communication talisman with Jindan Xiaodao of Wuji Xianmen, Chen Daoxian wandered around the fairy city alone. As the largest of the many kingdoms under the jurisdiction of Wuji Xianmen, Su Kingdom not only has a vast territory, but its internal atmosphere is much more open than Wanxinghai. Strolling in the capital of Su State, Chen Daoxian saw that the women were dressed more openly than Wanxinghai. Almost all the women were wearing a layer of translucent gauze, exposing large areas of snow-white skin. Chen Daoxian was walking on the street, and there were even daring women. Seeing his handsome appearance, he secretly greeted him. Walked around for about an hour. Chen Daoxian found an inn responsible for the rental of Dongfu under the recommendation of a Zifu cultivator. Senior, this is Fenglai Inn, one of the 3 largest inns in the capital of Su country. As he said that, the Zifu cultivator who led the way suddenly lowered his voice and whispered, the owner of Fenglai Inn is the Situ family of the Su country. The Situ family is strong and absolutely trustworthy. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian nodded. He was born in Wanxinghai outside Xianyun continent. He had heard of Wuji Xianmen, but he had never heard of the so-called Situ family. In fact, it is not surprising that Xianyun continent is incomparably vast, let alone a cultivator family. It is a first-class sect, and there are a few people who have heard of it. Generally speaking, the so-called first-class forces only have a certain influence near their sphere of influence. Out of its sphere of influence, who knows who you are? Not to mention a small immortal family in Su country. Seeing the expression on Chen Daoxuan's face, he didn't care. The cultivator of Zifu hurriedly said in Chen Daoxuan's ear, "Senior, this ancestor of the Situ family is a Taoist Yuanshan Daojun on the 5th floor of the world. Behind it, there is the great backer of Wuji Xianmen, not to mention in Su country, even in the entire Zhongzhou no one dares to provoke Senior Yu." These remarks, for the Zifu cultivator in front of him, are also sincere words. It can be said that as a Xiang Dao, this Zifu cultivator is already very qualified. Chen Daoxian is not someone who doesn't know what is good or bad. The cultivator of the Zifu before him can kindly remind him. Naturally, he is afraid that Chen Daoxian does not know the seriousness and offends the Situ family. You must know that every year there are monks from the outside world who travel to the country of Su, and after offending the powerful of the country of Su, they eventually lead to the example of no bones left. Thank you for reminding me. Chen Daoxian bowed his hands to the Zifu cultivator in front of him. It was probably the first time that the Zifu cultivator was treated so politely by a true monarch nascent soul. He immediately flushed with excitement and kept smirking. "It's easy to talk, Senior is too polite." Saying that, the Zifu cultivator turned his body and stretched out his right hand towards Chen Daoxian. "Senior, please." Chen Daoxian nodded. The two walked into the inn one after the other. Don't look at Fenglai's small area in the capital of Su Kingdom, but entering the interior, Chen Daoxian found that the inside of this inn is actually a cave world with a large area. As soon as they entered the inn, a monk in a lavender costume flew towards Chen Daoxian and the two. Obviously, this monk is the guy at the inn. "Senior, welcome to Fenglai Inn." The visitor stopped in front of Chen Daoxian, and then saluted Chen Daoxian respectfully. Chen Daoxian swept his consciousness at will, and found that the other party's cultivation had actually reached the Purple Palace period. It is unimaginable in Wanxinghai that a dignified cultivator of Zifu actually works as a clerk in an inn. Although he was extremely surprised in his heart, Chen Daoxian showed no signs of strangeness on the surface. "Senior, do you want to rent the cave, or?" Chen Daoxian said concisely. "Rent a cave?" Hearing that Chen Daoxian was going to rent the cave, the Fenglai guy's face became even more flattering. He bowed and said, "Senior, the cave in my Fenglai Inn is divided into 5 grades. The first gear is called Lingyuan's Secret Realm. In addition to abundant spiritual energy, this Lingyuan's Secret Realm also has a spiritual well that can temper Dao soldiers. This spiritual well is incredible. It is rumored that every 100 years, a drop of spirituality is born. It is a rare treasure." Hearing the buddy brag about the secret realm of Lingyuan, the guide of Zifu, who led Chen Daoxian to look for the inn, was a little blind and interrupted on the spot. "Could it be that fellow Taoists bullied my parents to come to Su country for the first time? Whether the spiritual well of the spiritual source secret realm can give birth to spirituality, do you really think we don't know?" Cough this. The Zifu period guy in front of him immediately felt a little embarrassed. He originally thought that he would meet a foreigner who didn't understand the market, but he did not expect to be 2 regular customers. Seeing that the 2 were regular customers, the buddy immediately put away the attitude of slaughtering customers and said, "Of course the Lingyuan secret realm is good, but the rental price is also very high, and the annual rent is as high as 100 drops of the power of good fortune. In addition, the mysterious water secret realm in the second stage of my Fenglai Inn is more suitable for the cultivation of the senior's nascent soul." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian was shocked. He said calmly, "Can you see my cultivation?" Senior is joking, of course the junior can't see the senior's cultivation. The Zifu period guy handed over his hands. "It's just that the first time senior stepped into my inn, Fengling informed the next senior about his cultivation." Fengling. Chen Daoxian secretly memorized this new term. Seemingly seeing Chen Daoxuan's doubts, the Zifu guide on the side hurriedly said, "Fengling is the Taoist soldier in Fenglai Inn." This is the second time Chen Daoxian has heard the word Daobing, and he can't help but feel even more puzzled. But now that he is new here and he doesn't know everything, he plans to settle down first and then get to know everything. "What's the price of mysterious water secret realm?" "Senior, the concentration of spiritual energy in the mysterious water secret realm is no less than that of the spiritual source secret realm. The only difference is that there is no spiritual well for tempering the Taoist soldiers, So only 10 drops of the power of good fortune can be rented for a year. 10 drops of the power of creation. Even with Chan Daoxuan's wealth, he couldn't help but be speechless at this price. The Fenglai Inn in the capital city of Su Country does not use spiritual stones to calculate the charges, but directly uses the power of good fortune. It is really arrogant. If Chen Daoxian had not prepared before going out, he would not necessarily be able to live in such an inn. Chen Daoxian decisively took out a jade bottle from the storage ring, threw it at random and said, "I rent it for 4 years, and here are 40 drops of the power of creation." Hearing this, the Zifu period guy in front of him didn't know that Chen Daoxuan's trip was to go to Liangjiuan. The expression on his face could not help but become more respectful. After taking the jade bottle, the Zifu guy handed another jade token to Chen Daoxian, saying, "This is the jade talisman that controls the mysterious realm of Xianshui. Please keep it, senior." Chen Daoxian took the jade talisman. The purple mansion continued. "Senior, please come with me." After that, he led the way for Chen Daoxian. Chen Daoxian followed with the guide. Soon, the three of them came to a small cave. The guy at Fenglai turned his head, looked at Chen Daoxian and the two, and said, "This is the mysterious realm of Xianshui, so the junior will not disturb the senior to rest." Having said that, he cupped his hands towards Chen Daoxian, and then turned into a flash of light and left. Chen Daoxian watched the other party leave, turned his head, with a faint smile on his face, glanced at the guide he randomly invited, and said, "Fellow Daoists would like to come in for a chat." Along the way, this Zifu period guide worked so hard for so long, just for Chen Daoxuan's words. He immediately nodded and said, "Yes, the junior is willing." Seeing this, Chen Daoxian nodded, manipulated the jade talisman to open the formation of the mysterious realm of Xianshui, and then stepped in first. The guide of Zafuki did not dare to delay. He gritted his teeth and walked in after him, silently following behind Chen Daoxian. The Zifu period guide said nothing. Chen Daoxian did not speak, but just looked at the arrangement in the mysterious territory of Xianshui. The internal space of this mysterious realm is quite large. Chen Daoxian estimates that it is even larger than his fairy mansion on Shuanghu Island, covering an area of more than hundreds of thousands of square meters. More importantly, the concentration of spiritual energy in this mysterious secret territory is very abundant, although there is no spiritual veins here. However, Chen Daoxian could sense that there has been aura constantly replenishing it from the outside world, so that the concentration of aura here is almost comparable to that of the fifth order spiritual meridian, which is completely enough for a nascent soul cultivator to practice. After visiting the mysterious realm of Xianshui, Chen Daoxian found a palace in the secret territory and pushed the door in. The interior decoration of the palace is complete and luxurious. However, Chen Daoxian is not someone who attaches great importance to enjoyment, and he turns a blind eye to all these things. Casually walked to a chair in the hall and sat down. Chen Daoxian looked at the Zifu cultivator standing in front of him, and this was the first time he took a serious look at the other party. The cultivator of the purple mansion in front of him was wearing a gray and linen shirt, showing off his muscular arms, and looking at his face, he looked like a guy in his 20s. However, cultivators cannot judge their age by their appearance, and Chen Daoxian knows this. The Zifu cultivator in front of him has a young face, and there are two possibilities. One is that the other party established the foundation earlier, and has the skills to reside there. The second is that the other party has taken magic pills such as Jian pill. But Chen Daoxian prefers the first one because he just used his spiritual sense to quietly check the other party's spiritual roots, and he found that the Zifu cultivator in front of him was actually a Tianlingzhen cultivator. Although Tianlingzhen cultivator is slightly inferior to some cultivators with special spiritual bodies, but looking at all the cultivators, they are also top-notch. A Tianling root cultivator, if the resources are sufficient, the nascent soul stage would not dare to say, and there is still a certain degree of confidence in breaking through the golden core stage. As for the nascent soul stage and the nascent soul stage in the future, it is basically not determined by the quality of the spiritual root alone, but to a greater extent it depends on various factors such as the cultivator's chance, comprehension, and xinxing. At most, Lingzhen can only help cultivators to reach the Purple Palace period, and the further back they go, the less influence Lingzhen has on cultivators. For Chen Daoxian today, How does the speed of refining spiritual energy in a mere area affect him? With Chen Daoxuan's Tao realm, if he doesn't consider erysipelas, he can even eat the elixir as a meal. This kind of cultivation condition also considers what spiritual roots are not spiritual roots. Even Chen Daoxian disliked the fact that ordinary spiritual pills were too slow to improve their cultivation. This time he went to Liangjiyuan to find an alchemist who could refine Shengyuan pills and help him refine them. As long as he takes the Saint Yuan Dan with his Tao realm, he can instantly raise his cultivation base to the peak of Yuaning. For Chen Daoxian, what is the significance of the so-called spiritual roots? Being scrutinized by a powerful nascent soul cultivator like Chen Daoxian, the Zifu cultivator in front of him was under great pressure, and before he knew it, sweat slipped down his temples. Half an hour. Chen Daoxian finally said, "What's your name?" Hearing this, the young and sturdy cultivator of Zifu heaved a sigh of relief, bowed and said, "I tell the seniors the junior's surname is Wu, and his name is Mingxiu." Wu Mingxiu, Chen Daoxian nodded. "Come on the way today you reminded me repeatedly, not just for that little guide fee, right? Senior Ming Jian." The Zifu cultivator named Wu Mingxiu immediately knelt down and kowtowed. Junior asked Senior to bring Junior to Liangjiyuan. This time Chen Daoxian was completely shocked. "Are you going to the Two Realms?" Chen Daoxian frowned. A place like Liangjiyuan, even for him, is an extremely dangerous place. The Zifu cultivator in front of him is only in the middle stage of Zifu, and his strength is not even comparable to Chen Fusheng. What is the difference between him going to Liangjiyuan and seeking his own death? Da. Chen Daoxian tapped the table lightly and said slowly, "Give me a reason." "Rescue." Wu Mingxiu raised his head. The younger generation needs a treasure in the ruins of the true immortal world to save the life of the younger generation's beloved. Facing Chen Daoxuan's gaze, Wu Mingxiu looked at him without giving up. In this situation, anyone who sees it can't help but give a thumbs up to this most affectionate man. But Chen Daoxian didn't believe it at all. As for the reason, this Wu Mingxiu's actions are too reckless, but judging from his performance along the way, this person is also a very delicate person. Such a contradictory move made Chen Daoxian have to doubt. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian glanced at the other party with his divine sense again. And it was indeed the middle period of Zifu. Da. Chen Daoxian tapped on the table again and pondered. 7017K. Chapter 431. Going to Liangjiyuan is expensive. Are you sure you can afford it? Chen Daoxian looked at the Zifu period monk named Wu Mingxiu in front of him and said slowly, "Senior." Wu Mingxiu opened his mouth and was about to speak. Suddenly the ground shook, and the mysterious realm of Xianshui trembled violently. What happened? Chen Daoxian stood up abruptly. He ignored Wu Mingxiu, and with a flash he rushed out of the mysterious realm of Xianshui. As soon as he flew out of the mysterious realm of Xianshui, Chen Daoxian discovered the Zifu period guy who had entertained him before. The Zafuki guy who was appeasing the guests of Fenglai saw Chen Daoxian, and immediately greeted Chen Daoxian. He bowed and saluted. The inn's poor hospitality has surprised the seniors. Chen Daoxian didn't mean to blame the other party but just asked, "What's going on? Is the capital of Su country still so unstable?" Although the outbreak just lasted only for a moment, Chen Daoxian clearly felt that it was a Yuanshan Daojun who shot. Normally, Yuanshan Daojun took action and completely destroyed an immortal city. The reason why the capital of Su Kingdom is so strong is due to the terrifying forbidden air formation in this immortal city. This access control air formation not only limits the speed of the cultivators flying and the ability to perform space teleportation, but also limits the cultivator's attack power. As long as the cultivator's attack power does not exceed the upper limit of the forbidden space, it will not cause destructive damage to this immortal city. Not to mention directly blowing up an immortal city like Chen Daoxian fought against the Palace Master Yue of Xianqing Dao League before. This kind of thing is almost impossible to happen in the capital of Su country. But in any case, a primordial spirit Daojun directly shot in the capital of Su Kingdom, which is undoubtedly a great challenge to Wuji Xianmen. Who has such courage? The Zafuki guy at Fenglai heard Chen Daoxuan's question and quickly replied, "Senior, it was the rebels of Sini religion who made trouble in the city and disturbed the senior new doctrine." Seeing the doubts on Chen Daoxuan's face, Zafuki's clerk explained, Sini religion is an evil organization spontaneously organized by scattered cultivators within the jurisdiction of Wuji Xianmen. The purpose of this evil organization is to overthrow the rule of Wuji Xianmen and let the scattered cultivators in the whole central state equally share the spiritual veins and resources of Wuji Xianmen. Isn't this crazy? With that said, a look of disdain appeared on the face of this Zifu period guy. Rebels. A clear look appeared on Chan Daoxuan's face. Although it took less than a day to come to the capital of Su Kingdom, Chen Daoxian could feel that the degree of oppression of the scattered cultivators here was even greater than that of Wan Xinghai. As a traveler, when Chen Daoxian didn't have the golden scriptures, he felt that the path of cultivation was dark. Not to mention other loose repairs. Their situation will only be more difficult than Chen Daoxian. In this world, scattered cultivators accounted for more than 90%, which was the largest group of cultivators. However, the resources that the loose cultivators have are the least. In the long run, the conflict broke out, and Chen Daoxian was not surprised at all. However, in Chen Daoxuan's view, the possibility that this new doctrine will succeed is infinitely close to zero. The reason is simple. Fengyun world is a world of immortal cultivation. In other words, it is a world where great power is attributed to itself. The more great power is attributed to oneself, the more solidified the class of the world is, which is determined by human nature. In the Phoenix Meteor world, sects and clans occupy most of the resources. And because it occupies most of the resources, the sect and family can cultivate many more top-level powerhouses than the loose cultivator group. In the face of these top powerhouses, what do loose cultivators do to confront them? It's not that there are no strong people in the loose cultivators, but compared to the sect and the immortal family, the proportion of top strong people born in the loose cultivators is too low. And once a top powerhouse is born, it will be bribed by some sects and families with positions such as elder Kuching. Without these top powerhouses from loose cultivators who are the masters of the loose cultivators are like a piece of loose sand. No matter how many they are, they cannot pose any threat to the sect and the cultivator family. Seeing the Zifu period guy in front of him spitting out the new doctrine, Chen Daoxian suddenly said, "Which lifetime brother are you from the Situ family?" Hearing this, Zifuki's face suddenly froze, and then, a touch of embarrassment appeared on his face. "Junior. The junior is not a member of the Situ family yet, no. However, the junior is now pursuing a young lady from the Situ family, and I believe that he will soon be able to enter the gate of the Situ family." The Zifu period guy is plausible. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian turned his head away and stopped looking at him. The Zifu period guy also seemed to feel that he was being looked down upon, bowed his head and bowed his hands to Chen Daoxian, and said in a loud voice, "Senior, if you have something to do with this junior, you will retire first." After that, it turned into a flash of light and disappeared in front of Chen Daoxian. Glancing at the back of this Zifu period guy who didn't even know his name, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but sigh deeply. He suddenly remembered a sentence from a previous life. Whenever a slave stood up to oppose slavery, the first one to stand up against it was not the slave owner, but the slave. The riots come quickly and subside quickly. Soon this immortal city returned to calm. As if the attack just now was not initiated by Yuanshan Daojun, but a temporary intention of a thief. Chen Daoxian didn't know what the fate of the Yuanshan Daojun would be, but he couldn't and shouldn't manage these things. Return to the mysterious water realm. Entering the hall of the secret realm, Chen Daoxian found that Wu Mingxiu was still kneeling in the hall, as if the attack just now had nothing to do with him. Chen Daoxian said thoughtfully, "Get up first." There was a hint of hesitation on Wu Mingxiu's tall nose and wide mouth, but soon he stood up. It's just that his attitude is still firm, and he looks like Chen Daoxian doesn't agree and he won't leave. Seeing this, Chen Daoxian smiled and said, "You are so courageous. How dare you use this attitude to force a true monarch nascent soul who is 2 realms higher than you? Aren't you afraid of death?" Who knows? Wu Mingxiu raised his head and said, "If I can't go to Liangjiuan and find treasures to save my Taoist companion's life, what's the point of living alone?" "You are infatuated." Chen Daoxian shook his head. "But as I said before, going to Liangjiuan costs a lot of money. You can't afford it. You can't expect me to pay for it for you, right?" Hearing this, Wu Mingxiu gritted his teeth, turned his heart, took out a jade talisman from the storage ring, and handed it to Chen Daoxian. Senior, please see, this is a treasure I accidentally acquired, called the Heavenly Secret Talisman, but, as everyone knows, before the other party can finish his words, Chen Daoxian took this talisman into his hand. Another celestial talisman. Chen Daoxian already had a Heavenly Secret Talisman in his hand, but the Heavenly Secret Talisman, which was originally damaged, was repaired by him with a lot of power of creation. Now, he actually found a second Heavenly Secret Talisman. According to the information revealed by the Heavenly Secret Talisman, this is one of the components of a 7th-order magic weapon. Chen Daoxian didn't even know how many pieces of this complete 7th-order magic weapon were. He only knew that this 7th-order magic weapon was left by Venerable Tianji of the Taiyin sect, and it was very precious. Chen Daoxian looked at the Heavenly Secret Talisman in his hand, and the light in his eyes was uncertain. A long time. He then nodded slowly to the cultivator named Wu Xiaoming and said, "Okay, the deal. Thank you, Senior." Wu Xiaoming immediately showed an ecstatic expression. "In the past 3 years you have been practicing in the side hall, and you are not allowed to go out for no reason. Also, when I practice I hate outsiders to disturb me. If there is no important matter, you must not disturb me. Junior respectfully abides by the elder's law." Wu Xiaoming nodded. He waved his hand and asked the other party to step back. In the hall, only Chen Daoxian was left. Gently rubbing the Heavenly Secret Talisman in his hand, Chen Daoxian dared to conclude that there was definitely something wrong with this cultivator named Wu Xiaoming. Previously, Chen Daoxian was looking for a guide at random, which was also planned by the other party and took the initiative to come together. Perhaps, the moment Chen Daoxian stepped into the capital of Su Kingdom, he was already targeted by the other party. But why was the other party staring at him? Suddenly, Chen Daoxian set his eyes on this secret talisman again, and gradually got the answer in his heart. Interesting. A smile appeared on the corner of Chen Daoxian's mouth. "I'll go out, and you'll practice here for the time being." After saying that, Chen Daoxian ignored Wu Xiaoming's reaction, and with a flash of light, he flew out of the mysterious realm of Xianshui. Get out of the secret realm. Chen Daoxian found the Zifu period guy who was in charge of receiving him. Perhaps it was because Chen Daoxian had despised him before, and seeing Chen Daoxian again, this Zifu period guy's face was a little unsightly. It's just because of Chen Daoxian's cultivation that this Zifu period guy didn't dare to attack. He bowed his body and said, "I've seen Senior." Chen Daoxian didn't care about the other party's face and asked, "Let me ask you, is there a place that sells books and jade slips in this city?" "Books?" The Zifu period guy was slightly taken aback. "Does the Senior want to buy a practice method? If you want to buy a practice method, there is the largest shop in the city called Chuanbao Pavilion. Seniors can go there and have a look." "Thank you." After Chen Daoxian said that, he threw a bottle of spirit pills, and then left the Fenglai Inn with the gratitude of the other party. Walking out of the Fenglai Inn, Chen Daoxian walked in the direction of the Chuanbao Pavilion that the man said. The capital of Su State occupies a very large area. Due to the restrictions of the Forbidden Air Formation, flying is not allowed in the city, and all cultivators have to rely on a magic weapon called the escape shuttle to travel. According to the tip of the staff at Fenglai Inn before leaving, Chen Daoxian held the Formation Jade Talisman in the mysterious realm of Xianshui, and summoned an escape shuttle. Less than half a cup of tea, an empty shuttle appeared in front of Chen Daoxian. From the outside, it seems that this escape shuttle can only accommodate one person. But as Chen Daoxian opened the hatch of the escape shuttle and stepped into it, he found that the space inside was very spacious, not to mention one person, even more than 100 people. Chen Daoxian was not surprised by the use of space magic. This level of magic, let alone Wuji Xianmen, even if the Chen family's Magical Research Institute wants to develop a similar one, it will not take too much. The only thing that shocked Chen Daoxian was that after the escaping shuttle flew over the capital of Su Country, looking around, countless escaping shuttles were flying over the capital of Su Country. But the strange thing is that so many flying instruments were crowded over the capital of Su Kingdom, but there was no collision incident. No wonder the capital of Su Country has to set up a no-air formation. If there is no no-air formation, so many cultivators will be crowded together and fly in the light. It is estimated that every day the light hits, I don't know how many times it will happen. Chen Daoxian sat in the escape shuttle and muttered, Don't think that if the cultivator has spiritual consciousness, there will be no air disaster. There were some immortal cities in Wanxinghai that did not set up a forbidden air formation. As a result, a large-scale battle was triggered because of the collision of the cultivators. So much so that the immortal city was finally turned into ruins. Since then, the major immortal cities in Wanxinghai will basically have forbidden space formations, and the difference is only in the strength of forbidden formations. It's just that Chandaoxian has never seen a forbidden air formation like Zhu's capital city, which prohibits all cultivators from flying. Generally speaking, Xiancheng's air forbidden formations prohibit low-level monks from flying in the sky, but they turn a blind eye to the escape of high-level monks. At this point, Sugua is equally treated. And in Wanxinghai, after the cultivator was banned from flying, most of the immortal cities would use cloud-treading beasts to travel. The cloud-treading beast is a first-order monster raised by monks. Its temperament is gentle and its endurance is extremely strong, and it is extremely stable when it carries the vehicle. Therefore, it is widely praised by monk Wanxinghai. But in the capital of Su State, Chen Daoxian didn't even see the shadow of a beast car that treads clouds. In this city before, he could only see densely packed pedestrians and a dazzling array of shops on both sides of the street. As for the means of transportation, Chen Daoxian didn't see a single one. But now he saw it. The flying shuttle in the high altitude of the capital city of Feishu will disappear after taking off, so that the pedestrians below will not feel any depression. However, Chen Daoxian flew high in the sky on the escaping shuttle, but he could see countless escaping shuttles flying along the dense and empty route. See this scene. If he ignores the classical architectural style of the capital of the Su Kingdom, and the simple appearance of the escaping shuttle, Chen Daoxian suspects that he has come to a sci-fi city. One escaping shuttle is not worth mentioning, but with so many escaping shuttles, it can safely shuttle over the fairy city and send each cultivator to the designated place. The strength of this refining tool. Chen Daoxian shook his head. He knew in his heart that even if the Chen family's Magical Instrument Research Institute and the Qianyuan Jianzong's artifact refining hall joined forces, it would be far from being able to do it. If you use sci-fi rhetoric, this scene is completely intelligent. But Chen Daoxian was in the world of cultivation, so he didn't know how to describe the scene in front of him. Thoughts are surging. Dang Kong Shua soon took Chen Daoxian to the destination of his trip, Chuanbao Pavilion. Rumor has it that the Chuanbao Pavilion in the capital of Su Kingdom was opened by Wuji Xianmen. There are countless treasures in it, and even the legendary Pure Yang Immortal artifact can be bought in the Chuanbao Pavilion, as long as you can afford the price. Chen Daoxian scoffed at this. In his opinion, no matter how prosperous the Chuanbao Pavilion is, it will not sell the Pure Yang Immortal artifact. You must know that the Pure Yang Fairy artifact that survived in the Phoenix Meteor realm was all left by the Mahayana True Immortals, who flew up to the upper realm in the ancient times. These immortal artifacts will only decrease and will not increase again. Can be said that one less is used. Such a precious treasure. Can Chuanbao Pavilion be willing to sell it? Just a gimmick. 7017K. Chapter 432. Get off the escaping shuttle. Chen Daoxian looked at the building in front of him, which covers an area of only tens of thousands of square meters, the Chuanbao Pavilion. From the outside, this building is only 3 stories high. But Chen Daoxian knew that its interior must be the same as the Fenglian, and it was also unique. In fact, in the capital of Su State, the slightly larger shops have a small cave inside. As the place closest to Liangjiyuan in Phoenix Meteor Realm, the Jiayuan pearls, which are rarely seen in the outside world, are almost overflowing here. The cave world is naturally not worth mentioning. Without thinking too much, Chen Daoxian strode into the Chuanbao Pavilion. Entering the Chuanbao Pavilion as expected, there is a huge cave inside. Chen Daoxian tried his best, but he couldn't see the edge of this cave. Unlike the interior of Fenglian, the reception staff in this Chuanbao Pavilion seemed rather lazy. Chen Daoxian has been in for a long time, but he can hardly see a person who came to entertain him. If the old man sleeping on the desk was the receptionist. Looking around, Chen Daoxian was sure that the old man was the only one nearby. Helplessly walked towards the other side. Cough cough. Chen Daoxian walked to the other side and stood still, coughing hard. What? The old man was awakened by Chen Daoxian's cough, rubbed his sleepy eyes and said, "Who is it?" Immediately, the old man saw Chan Daoxuan's appearance clearly, and threw a sign, "Go to the second floor by yourself." Say it. The old man fell asleep on the table again. Chan Daoxian took over the wooden sign with a rough appearance and immersed in his divine sense. The next moment, a large amount of information poured into his sea of consciousness. It turned out that the Taoist soldiers here were responsible for everything in the Chuanbao Pavilion. The old man sitting in front of the gate is the only human race monk in this treasure pavilion, and the other party's cultivation base is not high, just like Chan Daoxian, only in the Yuanning period. Dao soldiers. Chen Daoxian heard this title again. In Wanxinghai he had never heard of Dao soldiers, only puppets. Just don't know what is the difference between the two. After thinking about it, Chen Daoxian immediately issued an instruction to him, according to the prompt information in the wooden sign. As this order was issued soon, a fairy dressed in neon clothes flew towards him on a fairy cloud. Riding the clouds and driving the fog? Chen Daoxian looked at the female cultivator flying towards him. His consciousness swept away slightly, and then shook his head. It turned out to be a cloud-shaped magic weapon. However, as soon as this Nishang female cultivator appeared on the stage, Chuanbao Pavilion's grade instantly rose. The female cultivator in Nishang flew in front of Chen Daoxian, and the clouds under her feet dissipated in an instant. Immediately, she bowed to Chen Daoxian. "I have seen fellow Taoist." When Chen Daoxian saw this, he immediately bowed his hands to it and said, "The fairy is polite. I don't know if you come to my Chuanbao Pavilion, what do you need?" Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan's mind moved slightly. "I've heard about the name of Sugua Chuanbao Pavilion for a long time. I don't know what treasures are sold in your pavilion?" Hearing this, Fairy Nishang smiled slightly. "Is it your first time to come to my Chuanbao Pavilion?" Chen Daoxian did not shy away and nodded directly. "Those who have come to my Chuanbao Pavilion know that there is no business in the world that my Chuanbao Pavilion does not do." Oh, it was the first time that Chen Daoxian heard someone speak in such a loud tone. Could it be that behind this Chuanbao Pavilion which top force is not able to sit in the seat? Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian asked tentatively, "Then, do you have any information on the heavenly venerate transcending tribulation?" "Have?" Nishang female cultivator nodded and said with a smile, "Don't say it's the information of the heavenly venerate. It is the information of the demon court. As long as the Taoist friends can afford the price, I can get the treasure pavilion for the Taoist friends." Hiss. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian immediately took a deep breath. For the first time, he discovered that perhaps the Fengyun realm was not as vulnerable to the true demon realm as he imagined. Right. If Fengyun realm is really vulnerable, the world demons have already raged in Fengyun realm. How can Fengyun realm be so peaceful? Suddenly Chen Daoxian thought of something. Then, can you Chuanbao Pavilion invite high-level alchemists to help refine a medicinal pill? Sure. Fairy Nishang nodded. "I don't know if you will produce the medicinal materials by yourself, or if I will produce the medicinal materials from the Chuanbao Pavilion." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian said in surprise, "Don't you ask the fairy what kind of medicinal pill I want to refine? No matter what kind of medicinal pill it is, as long as it is available in the Phoenix Meteor realm, and as long as the Taoist friends can afford the price, my Chuanbao Pavilion can refine them for the Taoist friends." Fairy Nishang still had a faint smile on her face. Chen Daoxian did not hesitate, and immediately took out a cyan and a red Shengyuan fruit from the storage ring, handed them over to the other party, and said, "I want to refine Shengyuandan, but I don't know how much your pavilion is asking." Fairy Nishang took the 2 Saint Yuan fruits, looked at them and said, "Although these 2 Saint Yuan fruits are well preserved, they should not be too short, at least 1,000 years. If you want to refine the words of Shengyuandan, whether it is efficacy or quantity, it may not be satisfactory, so fellow Taoists must be prepared." Chen Daoxian nodded. "I know the fairy just finds someone to refine it. It is good." Fairy Nishang nodded and said, "To refine this 30-year-old Saint Yuan fruit into a 4th-order Saint Yuan Dan, 17 kinds of auxiliary elixir are needed, plus the cost of the alchemist's shot. The Taoist friend needs to pay me 300 drops. The power of creation. As for this red Saint Yuan fruit..." The expression on Fairy Nishang's face became solemn. 300-year-old Shengyuan fruit is already a relatively precious treasure, and in terms of value, it is almost comparable to a 6th-rank high-grade magic weapon. To refine it into Shengyuan, you need to prepare 23 kinds of auxiliary elixir, plus the alchemist's shot fee. You have to charge you 1,000 drops of the power of good fortune. So expensive? Chen Daoxian was speechless. 1,300 drops of the power of good fortune is completely enough to raise a magic weapon from the 5th to the 6th, and it is even more than enough. In other words, to refine Shengyuan, Chen Daoxian had to smash into a 6th-order magic weapon on the premise of producing Shengyuan fruit. Chen Daoxian didn't have a few of the 6th-order instruments in total. How can you not feel distressed if you pay for it like this? But thinking of the treasures in his own cave artifact, Chen Daoxian's heart throbbed a little better. Seeing that Chen Daoxian thought it was expensive, Fairy Nishang didn't argue, but just smiled and said, "Have you considered it, fellow Taoist?" "It is good." Chen Daoxian nodded. "However, I can't bring out so much power of creation for the time being. Can you give me some grace? It's good to say that it will take some time to refine the Shengyuan pill. Daoist friends can pay the deposit first, and wait for the Taoist friends to raise the balance before taking the Shengyuan pill." Hearing such a thoughtful arrangement, Chen Daoxian didn't know what to say. "On the day I became Dan, I needed to observe it on the spot." "It's natural." Fairy Nishang readily agreed. After all, refining Shengyuan Dan is no trivial matter. Although Chuanbao Pavilion is very famous, Chen Daoxian also has to prevent the phenomenon of alchemy masters' greed for ink. Negotiate the details of cooperation. Chen Daoxian took out 650 drops of the power of creation from the storage ring with a heartache as a deposit. After disposing of the refining of Shengyuan Dan, Chen Daoxian suddenly felt a sense of enlightenment. Originally planned to go to Liangjiyuan to find an alchemist to refine Shengyuan pill, but it turned out that he did not need to go to Liangjiyuan. Only in the capital of Su country, there was a force capable of refining Shengyuan pill. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but feel relieved. If it wasn't for the last resort, Chen Daoxian didn't want to go to the battlefield outside the two realms. Because compared with the peaceful Phoenix Meteor realm, the extraterritorial battlefield of Liangjiyuan is a cultivator's meat grinder. There, at every moment, there are a large number of monks fighting to the death on the battlefield outside the territory. It can be said that cultivators who can spend years in the extraterritorial battlefield and survive are often much stronger than cultivators of the same rank. After talking about Shengyuan Dan, Chen Daoxian continued, "I also want a piece of information on the heavenly secret talisman, heard." Fairy Nishang took out a magic weapon to inquire. "About half a cup of tea time." Fairy Nishang raised her head. "The talisman is the treasure of the venerable heavenly secret of the Taiyin sect. This treasure is related to the remains of a real fairy world, so the price is higher. More expensive." Chen Daoxian had a headache when he heard the 3 words, "You." "How many?" Fairy Nishang stretched out 5 pale fingers. 100,000 drops of the power of creation. "What?" Chen Daoxian was startled. "Why don't you go grab it?" Fairy Nishang was not at all angry, and always kept a faint smile on her face. Seeing her expression, Chen Daoxian rarely felt that he was a little poor. A long time, Chen Daoxian waved his hand. "For the time being, let's give up on the secrets and auspices. I want a piece of information about the Taoist soldiers and the refining method of the Taoist soldiers." After hearing this, Fairy Nishang said generously, "The information and refining method of Taoist soldiers, I can give it to Taoist friends for free." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian asked suspiciously, "Isn't the fairy joking?" Fairy Nishang shook her head. "As fellow Taoists see, I am a Taoist soldier, boom." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian's heart suddenly turned upside down. The opponent is actually a Taoist soldier? In Chen Daoxian's heart, Taoist soldiers should be the same as puppets, at most a higher level puppet, but the fairy in front of him said that she is also a Taoist soldier. Chen Daoxian did not care about being rude, and immediately glanced at the other party with his divine sense. But then his face darkened even more. The other party is definitely human. He can't be wrong. Chen Daoxian knew that his artifact refining skills were not ranked in the Fengyun world, but he never believed that someone in this world could refine such a perfect life. Unless the other party is not refined. With a faint grasp of the key point in his heart, Chen Daoxian had his own guesses about the origin of the Dao soldiers. With deep doubts, Chen Daoxian took the jade slip handed over by Fairy Nishang, then bowed his hands to her. and left the Chuanbao Pavilion. After leaving the Chuanbao Pavilion, Chen Daoxian took the escape shuttle again and returned to the Fenglai Inn. This trip was less than a day in total. But when Chen Daoxian returned to the mysterious realm of Xianshui, the expression on his face changed slightly. Someone came. Chen Daoxian immediately took out the array plate of the 9 palaces array. I saw his hand pinch the spirit formula and tap it on the formation plate. Next moment, an array of flags arranged in the entire mysterious realm of Xianshui suddenly appeared and flew towards him quickly. Looking at the array flag floating around the array, Chen Daoxian returned to the hall with a gloomy expression. Consciousness swept away. In the side hall, Wu Mingxiu sat on the futon and meditated quietly, as if nothing had happened. Apart from him, Chen Daoxian did not find any trace of anyone. Play hide and seek with me? Chen Daoxian smiled lightly. Immediately, he set up a 9-gong formation in the main hall, took out a gourd-shaped cave artifact, and then flashed into the gourd's cave. Entering the gourd cave, Chen Daoxian finally breathed a sigh of relief. With the protection of the 7th order array of the 9 palaces array, even if Yuanshan Daojun attacks, he can withstand it for a while. What Chen Daoxian should be concerned about now is not what tricks Wu Mingxiu is playing. What he cares about is how to solve the problem of the power of creation. Before setting off, Chen Daoxian asked Chen Daochu to find the Qinyuan Sword Sex refining hall and help refine 5 greenwood cauldrons. But now it seems that the number of Qingmu Ding is far from enough. The 5 greenwood cauldrons can produce 1,825 drops of the power of good fortune in 1 year. Sounds like that's quite a lot. But the power of creation he needs next is not a drop or 2, nor a few thousand drops but 100,000 drops. When he got the heavenly secret talisman by chance, Chen Daoxian only regarded it as one of the components of a 7th order magic weapon, and did not pay much attention to it. Although this treasure has the function of detecting fortune and good luck, the higher the cultivator's cultivation, the stronger the ability of mental early warning. The so-called fortune-telling of the celestial talisman means little to high-level cultivators. But this time Chen Daoxian was approached by someone, and the other party also sent the heavenly secret talisman to his hands, which made him pay attention to this thing all of a sudden. As for the coincidence, Chen Daoxian didn't believe it at all. He believed more that it was a premeditated calculation. In any case, he had to get the information of the heavenly secret talisman in order to know what the calculation behind it was. Otherwise, dreaming here will only get you nothing. As for the information of the heavenly secret talisman, Chuanbao Pavilion is asking for 100,000 drops of the power of creation. Why don't they go grab it? When Chen Daoxian thought of this, he felt an incomparable headache. That is 100,000 drops of the power of good fortune, and the 7th rank high-grade magic weapon is not so precious. Chen Daoxian did not know how much fortune Jiang Taiyuan expended in order to refine the 9 palaces array. But that was the result of countless years of accumulation in Jiang's family. Moreover, the Qingmu Ding before the Jiang family was not complete, and the power of creation that could be produced in 1 year was far less than 365 drops. Coupled with the power of Qingmu Ding's production and creation, it consumes 10 times more than the refining of nascent soul true monarch. Even if the Jiang family wanted to extract 100,000 drops of the power of good fortune, they could not afford the spirit stone. Therefore, the value of 100,000 drops of the power of good fortune must be above the 7th order magic weapon, at least above the value of the 9 palace array. What kind of intelligence is it that is so valuable? Chen Daoxian frowned deeply. Forget it, don't think about it, let's take a look at this Taoist information first. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian took out a jade slip from the storage ring. It was the Taoist information and refining method that Chuanbao Pavilion gave him for free. Sure enough, it's as I guessed. After simply reading the contents of the jade slip, Chen Daoxian knew why Chuanbao Pavilion did not charge for the information and refining methods of Taoist soldiers. 7,017 K. Chapter 433. Spirituality. The key to refining Tao soldiers is not refining technology but spirituality. In general, spirituality can only be created through the world by a creator monk. The world monster devours living beings in order to absorb the spirituality of living beings. It is really a luxury to cultivate Taoist soldiers with spirituality. Chen Daoxian muttered. No wonder there are no Taoist soldiers in Wuxia, the entire Wuxia, or even the entire northwestern border of Xianyunzhu. Which force can show the spirituality? This thing can only be created by a creator monk. The cultivator's Tao realm can reach the creation realm, at least in the late stage of the primordial spirit, and some are even directly transcending the robbery. A monk of this level, not to mention Wuxia, looks at the northwest frontier of Xianyun continent, and there is not a single faction that owns it. Thousand Machines Hall claims to be proficient in puppet art, but in front of Dao soldiers, what kind of puppet is this? Chun Daoxian shook his head. Chun Daoxian was not unacquainted with the product of puppet refining, but it was because he had seen it before that he understood the rigidity of puppets. This kind of artifact creation was fine for attacking dead objects such as Xiancheng and Lingshan. It is impossible to play a role in the battle of monks, especially the battle between high-level monks. After the monks reached the nascent soul stage, many of them understood the laws of space and mastered the technique of teleportation. Not to mention how strong the cultivator who has mastered teleportation is, the mobility is far from what a puppet can match. Even if the cultivator exaggerated the attack power of the puppet, it would still be nothing if he couldn't hit the enemy. But the soldiers are different, because in essence, Dao soldiers should be regarded as an alternative creature. The difference between them and the human race monks is that they are not viviparous, but the human race monks use their spirituality to instill creation such as puppets. Creation. Chen Daoxian raised his head. Although he is still far from the realm of creation, this does not prevent him from having some knowledge of this realm. Suddenly thought of something. Chen Daoxian's thoughts moved. This treasure pavilion has a great origin. I wonder if they have the spirituality to sell it? Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian's heart suddenly became hot. High-level puppets are nothing to monks, but Dao soldiers formed by high-level puppets are quite different. It's like the fairy Nishang that Chen Daoxian saw in Chuanbao Pavilion. If the other party hadn't taken the initiative to speak up, Chen Daoxian would not have found out that the other party was not a human being but a Taoist soldier. From this, it can be seen that once a high-level puppet is turned into a Taoist soldier, it has the strength of a monk of the same level. The more he thought about it, the more fiery Chen Daoxian's heart became. What does Wuxia lack? Lack of powerhouses. Lack of powerhouses in the primordial spirit stage, and even the transcending tribulation stage. If Wuxia now has several Yuanshan Daijins in charge, they will be able to sweep across the northwestern border of Xianyunzhu in an instant. What Xianqing Dao League, Spirit Insect Valley, Qianji Temple, all are not a problem. No matter how these sects are combined vertically and horizontally, in the face of absolute strength, they will not be able to turn any waves. Although there is an order from Tianzuan City, there should be no more large-scale infighting between the sects of the Phoenix Meteor realm. But as the saying goes, there are policies above and countermeasures below. Do not let the war infighting, and secretly control some second-rate forces for the first-rate forces. Is that a problem? For example, Wuji Xianmen now wants to secretly control Ganruan Liluan. What resistance can Ganruan Liluan have? The other party carefully sent a few Yuanshan Daojun to come, and he could easily control all the high-level officials of Ganruan Liluan. The high levels are all under control. Do you still need a large-scale invasion? Ruan Liluan continued to check the contents of the jade slip. The more he looked, the more excited the expression on Aoki Ding's face became. Take a puppet against a cultivator. A first-order puppet can match a chi-refining cultivator. A second-order puppet can match a foundation-building cultivator. The fourth-order puppet can match the Jindan stage, and the fifth-order puppet can match the nascent soul. While the sixth-order. Aoki Ding raised his head. It's the primordial spirit stage. The sixth-order puppet, in terms of value, is above the special sixth-order magic weapon. And this is not the key. The key point is that it takes a lot of spirituality to turn a sixth-order puppet into a Taoist soldier. This is the bulk of the cost. Aoki Ding suddenly woke up when he saw this. No wonder only the strength of Dujie Tianzuan can be called a top power. Not to mention Tianzuan Dujie's own extremely powerful strength. Just relying on his ability to enlighten Taoist soldiers, it is difficult for other forces to match. Suddenly, Qingmu Ding thought of Wuji Xianmen again. The outside world has been rumored that in addition to the absence of Tianzuan, Wuji Xianmen is not inferior to the top forces of Liangjiyuan in terms of strength. From this point of view, there must be a creation realm cultivator in Wuji Xianmen, and there may be more than one. This moment. Only then did Aoki Ding really catch a glimpse of the weakness of Wuji Xianmen. Although Wuji Xianmen is also a first-class force, the first-class force and the first-class force are obviously different. A world-level first-level Taoist power can barely be called a first-class power. But can this first-class force be comparable to Wuji Xianmen? This first-class force, after the Zhang family and Ganwan Xinghai unite, are not afraid of it, let alone Wuji Xianmen. In the eyes of Wuji Xianmen, this first-class force is no different from the second- and third-tier sect families, and it is an existence that can be crushed at will. Gourd Cave Days. Aoki Ding's mind immediately became active. The plan to go to Liangjiyuan has been completely cancelled by him. The reason why he went to Liangjiyuan was to find an alchemist who could refine Xingyuan pill, but now that Yunzhou can solve this problem, Qingmu Ding naturally doesn't have to go far. In addition, Qingmu Ding always felt that the cultivator named Yuan Jianzong, who was in the mysterious realm of Xianshui with him, was calculating something against him. The other party took out the heavenly secret talisman and gave it to him. Absolutely no good intentions. The only thing Ruan Liluan can be sure of now is that the other party needs to go to Liangjiyuan, and it is not so difficult for the other party to go to Liangjiyuan. Not only, as the other party said, the lack of the cost of the space teleportation array. Could it be said? New doctrine. In Ruan Lilan's mind, this force suddenly emerged. Sini religion is the confidant of Wuji Immortal sect. Although Wuji Immortal sect's power is much stronger than this Sini religion, it is not as good as Sini religion, which is hidden in the dark and destroys Wuji Immortal sect from time to time. Just like Huahua Ruan Liluan, who was the real god of the past. That makes sense, Aoki Ding nodded. Only people from Sini sect can't ride the space teleportation array controlled by Wuji Xianmen. The other party found me. Firstly, they used me to leave the capital of Su Kingdom, and secondly, it was also for my heavenly secret talisman. That said, there must be a core component of the heavenly secret talisman in the opponent's hand, which can sense other heavenly secret talismans. That's why he was so reckless and directly handed the heavenly secret talisman into my hands. In an instant, Ruan Lilan's thoughts were opened, and he guessed Ruan Lilan's origin. The only thing he was more puzzled about was that Yuan Jianzong's courage was so great that a mere mid-level cultivator of the Purple Mansion dared to plot against him, a Yuanian cultivator. Even if there is a new doctrine standing behind Yuan Jianzong, the cultivation base of Yuan Jianzong in the middle of Zifu is solid. Isn't the other party afraid that his hands will kill him? If Aoki Ding sees money and kills Yuan Jianzong, even if the Sini religion behind the opponent retaliates against Aoki Ding afterwards, it will be meaningless to Yuan Jianzong himself, because he took his life into it. The new doctrine is really a bunch of lunatics. Aoki Ding shook his head. Ruan Liluan believed that he had always had a lot of courage, but he really didn't have the guts to ask him to count Yuanying Xinjuan when he was in the Zifu period, and he was a second-level Yuanying Xinjuan like him. However, Aoki Ding didn't care about Yuan Jianzong's affairs. Anyway, he has already made up his mind not to go to Liangjiyuan this time. Even if the other party has more conspiracies and tricks, when the time comes to take the space teleportation array, Qingmu Ding will leave directly. Is the other party going to Liangjiyuan or not? Even if the other party temporarily changes his mind and does not go to Liangjiyuan, Aoki Ding has a way to force the other party to leave. Aoki Ding is most concerned about whether Chuan Yunzhao can buy spirituality. If you can buy spirituality, what is the specific price? However, regardless of whether Chuan Yunzhou sold spiritually or not, the currency that the other party settled with was definitely not a spirit stone, but most likely it was the power of good fortune. Because the power of creation, such a treasure, can not only help cultivators advance to the level of spiritual objects such as magic weapons, but also help cultivators advance to the realm of the world. This is a treasure that has a huge effect on the primordial spirit stage, and even the monks in the transcending tribulation stage. After the monk broke through the world and opened up his own world, if you want to be promoted to the world, you must meet two conditions. One is to continue to improve the laws of the Tao in the world. This belongs to enlightenment. Although there are some auxiliary methods, it depends more on the understanding of monks. The second condition is to irrigate the world with the power of creation, expand the scope of the world, and strengthen the power of the world. In this regard, the world opened up by the human monks is very similar to the origin of the world demon. The same is true of the source world of the world demon. After the expansion reaches a certain level, the Tao law must be improved in order to continue to expand, otherwise the world will be safe from collapse. The Tao law and the scope of the world complement each other. Either of the two has shortcomings, and neither can improve the level of the world. Many monks have no ability to earn the power of creation to expand the world after reaching the third level of the world, so they can only resort to stupid methods. From the endless void, draw a trace of the power of creation. Although this method does not consume any resources, it will consume a lot of cultivators' time. Although Yuanshan Daojun has a long lifespan, if he spends all his time absorbing the power of creation from the endless void, his path will basically come to an end. Therefore, there is a saying that the higher the cultivator's cultivation, the greater the demand for resources. The treasure pavilion can stand in the two worlds for hundreds of thousands of years, not only relying on the Zhang family's Tianzuan, but the treasure pavilion relies more on the merits of Wu Mingxiu left by the ancestors of the treasure pavilion. It is precisely by Wu Mingxia's continuous supply of the power of good fortune for the treasure pavilion that the treasure pavilion has its current heyday. Ruan Liluan is now like a man with a key to a vault, coming to a city with abundant supplies. He wanted to use the money in the vault to buy these materials, but found that he couldn't get the money in the vault for the time being. With this sense of anxiety, the tormented Aoki Ding is doing the right thing. He glanced at the 5 statues of Ruan Liluan in front of him, and thought for a while. This time he brought the spirit stone of a large spirit mine. The spirit stones of this large spirit mine are all earned by the Zhang family's business over the years. Actually, the amount of spirit stones the Zhang family has earned over the years is far more than a single spirit mine. How many, the patriarch Ruan Liluan is not too vague. He only knows that the Zhang family is definitely not short of spirit stones. For a large-scale spiritual stone mine, according to the standard, the reserves must be more than 1 billion tons. A standard spirit stone weighs about 500 grams. In other words, if all the spirit stones of a large spirit stone mine were mined, there would be at least 2 trillion or more. In Chen Daoxian there are many forces that can control a large spiritual mine, but all of them have extremely hard backgrounds. 2 trillion spiritual stones, if Wu Mingxiu refined it into the power of good fortune, a total of 200,000 drops of the power of good fortune could be extracted. 200,000 drops of the power of creation. This is a terrifying wealth. The primordial spirit Daojun on the 5th floor of the special world may not be able to come up with so much wealth. An Aoki Ding can have this terrifying wealth as long as it is refined by Wu Mingxiu. However, according to the rate at which the 5 statues of Wu Mingxiu can refine 1,825 drops of the power of good fortune in 1 year, it would take more than 100 years for Qingmu Ding to refine all the spiritual stones in the gourd cave into the power of good fortune. For more than 100 years it may be nothing to other nascent soul monks. But you must know that Aoki Ding has not had so much time to practice so far, and he must not wait. Besides, with the development of the real demon world by Zhang's family and Qianwan Xinghai, and their control of the northwestern border of the Xianchen family, it is unknown how many spirit stone mines Qingmu Ding will control in the future. It took him more than 100 years to refine a large spiritual stone mine. How about 100? What about 1,000? And what about giant spirit stone mines that have more reserves than large spirit stone mines? Therefore, Qingmu Ding must produce more Wu Mingxiu. Regarding Ruan Lilan's production method, Qingmu Ding already had a plan in mind, that is, to build a Wu Mingxiu production line to industrialize Ruan Liluan. If it weren't for the magical machine tool that Chen Daochu and the others developed, Aoki Ding would not have this idea in the short term. Instead, he would choose to find a group of reliable Tier 4 item refiners and slowly refine Wu Mingxiu. But the problem is that the 4th order refiner is rare, and secondly, the more people who master Wu Mingxiu's refining method, the more Wu Mingxiu's refining method will be exposed. This is no small thing. A few people have mastered the method of Wu Ming's cultivation system, and Qingmu Ding can still control it if he asks himself. But a large number of 4th order refiners have mastered, and there are many variables. Once the Zhang family and Gan Ruan Lilan's mastery of Ruan Lilan's refining method are exposed, Baoge will never let them go. At that time, not only the treasure pavilion, but other first-class forces and even top-level forces will all come to you. That is really the enemy of the world. The fact that Treasure Pavilion can master Ruan Lilan's refining method does not mean that other forces can also master it, which involves the issue of strength. If the strength is not enough, it is guilt. Therefore, for the manufacture of Wu Mingxiu, Qingmu Ding does not tend to have a large number of refiners to refine it, but prefers to use the machine tool to produce it. However, building a fourth-order magic tool production line is also a big challenge for Qingmu Ding. 7017K. Chapter 434. The family's magic tool machine tool has only reached the second generation, and there are still 2 generations before the fourth-order magic tool can be mass-produced. Chan Daoxian said silently. Fortunately, he has a lot of Comprehension Stardust at this moment. In the past, the Comprehension Stardust was limited, and Chan Daoxian did not dare to invest too much Comprehension Stardust in creating magical tools more. He uses the preaching function to let the people from the Family Magic Weapon Research Institute develop various magic tools instead of him. The advantage of doing this is that it has cultivated a large number of magical instrument research talents for the family. Second, it also saved a lot of Comprehension Stardust for Chan Daoxian himself. After so many years, the Chun family has developed many new types of magic tools, from various melting furnaces to machine tools. If Chen Daoxian is all alone, I don't know how much comprehension and stardust it would take to do it. However, the system of the Institute of Magical Instruments created by Chan Daoxian perfectly solved this problem. After all, Chan Daoxian is very clear about the truth that one person is short-sighted. In addition, with the development of the Chen family, there will definitely be more and more demand for various new types of magic tools. This is obviously not realistic. Therefore, the Dharma Instrument Research Institute system came into being. But now, facing the various treasures of the Chuanbao Pavilion, Chan Daoxian can't wait for the research of the Chun Family Magical Instrument Research Institute. Because Chan Daoxian had asked the Chun family's Magical Instrument Research Institute and the Qianyuan Jianzong's item refining hall to merge and reorganize before departure, it should be the chaotic period of the two running in. Chan Daoxian estimated that it was hard to say whether they could exert much R&D capability. In addition, he can't always preach for the people of the Magical Instrument Research Institute, and their research efficiency will inevitably be further reduced. For various reasons, Chan Daoxian decided to go into battle himself. Speaking of which, this should be the second time that Chan Daoxian wanted to develop a new magic weapon so urgently after he developed the Rongling furnace. The fourth-order magical machine tool used to produce the Qingmu Ding is also at least fourth-order. Think of this. Chan Daoxian first took out a jade slip and read it carefully. The jade slip in his hand recorded all the contents of the second-order magic tool machine tool, developed by the Chun Family Magic Tool Research Institute. This includes not only the refining method of the second-order magic tool machine tool, but also the research and development ideas for developing it. Research and development ideas are what Chan Daoxian values more. Because he had to follow this line of thinking, and further develop third-order or even fourth-order magical machine tools in one fell swoop. Chan Daoxian's item refiner rank is only the 4th rank, which is not too high. However, the rank of his array master is as high as the 6th rank, so looking at the various array methods recorded in this jade slip, it is like a college student looking at the mathematics knowledge of elementary and junior high school. It is very easy. After about 3 or 4 hours, Chan Daoxian finally read Chan Daochi's idea of the development of the machine tool. His first reaction after reading this jade slip was that Chan Daochu and the others had developed a machine tool for instruments. Compared with when he developed the Rongling furnace, their thinking was more mature and stable. Chan Daoxian developed the Rongling furnace back then. As for Chan Daochi's research and development of the machine tool, they use the exclusion method to choose a research direction and then try it regularly. If we exhaust all methods and find that this research direction cannot work, we will switch to another research direction. According to Chan Daochi's method to develop a new type of instrument, the result is that this kind of instrument can be successfully developed. The only difference is how much time and cost it takes. If they did not hesitate to pay the price, in theory, there would be no magic weapon that they could not develop. After reading the real record of Chan Daochi's development of the machine tool, Chan Daoxian was greatly inspired. I didn't expect that the Chun family has come so far in the research of magical instruments over the years. Chan Daoxian sighed. He is not the only one who is making progress in this world, and the people of the Chen family are also making progress. Although the speed of their progress may be slower than that of Chen Daoxian, the Chen family has never given up progress, which is the most commendable. If it were a child of another family, after seeing that the family was so strong, they would have long since stopped making progress and become extravagant all day long. The Chen family members, from cultivators to ordinary mortals, have no such thoughts. It can be seen that the Chen family has been extremely successful in family education. It is not in vain for Chen Daoxian to elevate family education to a strategic position, as important as the family population. Gourd Cave Days. Chen Daoxian sat cross-legged, and in the sea of knowledge, the huge stars of understanding slowly rotated. With each rotation of the Comprehension star, countless Comprehension stardust is consumed. Chen Daoxian's comprehension also began to skyrocket. 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 100 times. With 100 times more comprehension, his thinking is unprecedentedly clear, and inspiration continues to flow to him like an ocean tide. You can choose this direction. Chen Daoxian suddenly seized the inspiration in his mind, and chose a similar research direction following the original research and development idea of the second-order machine tool. In the Tanzhong cave, a mass of pure black flames floated out. A large amount of spiritual ore floated in front of this pure black flame, and the impurities were easily refined by it, leaving only clumps of spiritual liquid. It is much more convenient to use the fire of the devil to refine tools than the general spirit fire secret technique, Chen Daoxian said with a smile. Although there is no melting furnace, Chen Daoxian's refining effect has soared nearly 10 times due to the refining of this demonic fire. In a blink of an eye, a month has passed. I saw a huge machine tool appearing in front of Chen Daoxian. Judging from its aura, the magic tool machine in front of Chen Daoxian is a 4th-order high-grade magic tool. It's done. After a month of trying, 100 times the blessing of comprehension, and the foundation Chen Daochu and the others laid, Chen Daoxian finally refined this 4th-generation machine tool. Although there is only one magic machine but only one of it, the refining efficiency is enough to be comparable to dozens of 4th-order refining masters. Generally speaking, it will take at least a few years for a 4th-order refiner to refine a greenwood cauldron. And with this 4th-order magic tool machine, it only takes a month at most to produce a greenwood cauldron. I have the fire of the devil. At my speed, it takes only a few days to refine a 4th-order magic tool machine tool, but the magic tool machine tool also needs someone to operate. Suddenly, Chen Daoxian flashed. Let Dao soldiers operate? However, will this be too extravagant? Although I don't know the value of a bit of spirituality, Chen Daoxian felt that the things that can be created by monks in the creation realm cannot be cheap. However, with the spiritual stones I'm carrying now, I probably need more than 500 greenwood cauldrons, and I can finish refining them within a year. A 4th-order magic tool machine can produce 1 greenwood cauldron a month. I need to refine 50 within a year, and I can use these 50 magic tool machines to produce 600 greenwood cauldrons within a year. After a simple calculation, Chen Daoxian found that the plan was completely feasible. 3 years was enough for him to refine all the spirit stones. Not only that, Chen Daoxian even had about a year of free time to improve his cultivation. As for the operation of the machine tool, Chen Daoxian also figured it out, and he personally operated it for the time being. It is very convenient to operate the machine tool to produce Aoki Ding. Even mortals can do it. With his cultivation base, he can operate 50 machine tools at the same time, but it is a piece of cake. It is too extravagant to use the Dao soldiers to operate the machine tool, and Chen Daoxian does not consider this aspect for the time being. Think about everything. Chen Daoxian implemented it according to his ideas. Time passed slowly. During this period, Chen Daoxian went out again and purchased a large amount of spiritual ore for refining the machine tool. Fortunately, he prepared enough spirit ore for refining the Qingmu cauldron, not to mention refining more than 500 statues, even refining 1,000 statues, 10,000 statues more than enough. 1 year later. Gourd Cave Days. The last 4th-order magic tool machine was slowly taking shape in his hands. Chen Daoxian was surrounded by huge metal beasts. Since there was no spiritual line network of the Chen family, the machine tools in front of him were powered by spiritual stones and arrays. 50 finally completed. Even with Chen Daoxian's cultivation level, the machine tool that has been refining for a year without rest and sleep consumes a lot of money. Fortunately, 50 machine tools were finally refined within the budget time. The next step is to use these 50 machine tools to produce Qingmu Ding. Chen Daoxian lined up 50 machine tools and combined them with the fourth-order Rongling furnace he carried to form a greenwood tripod production line. In the end, 50 greenwood tripod production lines were completed under the installation of Chen Daoxian. Looking at the rudimentary Aoki Ding production line in front of him compared to the Chen family's instrument factory, Chen Daoxian let out a sigh of relief and said slowly, "Let's start." Under his distraction, 50 production lines were running at full power, producing Aoki Ding. A month later, 50 bluewood cauldrons were produced, and Chen Daoxian put enough spirit stones into the 50 bluewood cauldrons, so he ignored them and continued to produce other bluewood cauldrons. 1 year later, a total of 600 green wooden cauldrons are placed in the gourd cave heaven. Not only that, this year the Aoki Ding, which was first produced, has already refined nearly half of the spirit stone he carried. His left hand trembled slightly and caressed the storage ring on the index finger of his right hand, because it contained more than 100,000 drops of the power of creation. This is the most terrifying wealth that Chen Daoxian has mastered since his cultivation. Chen Daoxian is not going to intervene in the remaining spirit stone refining. There is a small space inside the Aoki cauldron, which holds all his remaining spiritual stones. When the 600 cyanwood cauldrons have finished refining these spiritual stones, he will gain more than 100,000 drops of the power of creation. A total of 200,000 drops of the power of creation. Although Chen Daoxian didn't know how much spirituality these 200,000 drops of the power of good fortune could buy, he knew that the money he bought for the intelligence of the heavenly secret talisman was enough. Think of this. Chen Daoxian didn't delay, and flew out directly from the gourd cave. Immediately after putting away the gourd, his body flashed and flew out of the mysterious realm of Xianshui. In the side hall, sensing that Chen Daoxian was leaving again, Wu Mingxiu opened his eyes slightly, and then slowly closed them again. Chuanbao Pavilion. Chen Daoxian came here for the third time. The last time I came here I wanted to buy some spiritual ore for refining the fourth-order magic tool machine tool. Although these spiritual ores are tier 4, buying some tier 4 spiritual ores with Chen Daoxian's cultivation base is considered shabby. There's nothing to be noticed at all. Although the things he wants to buy next will attract the attention of those who are interested, once these things are successfully purchased, the strength of Chen Daoxian will skyrocket. Don't worry about anyone else following him stepping into the Chuanbao Pavilion. The one who greeted him was still the fairy in Nishang. Friend Chen. When Fairy Nishang saw Chen Daoxian, she took the initiative to greet her. "I'm going to tell my friend, the Shang Yuan Den you want to refine will become a pill in a few days." Hearing this good news, Chen Daoxian's face was overjoyed. "Thank you, Fairy." "Fellow Daoist Chen, don't be polite. I should thank you for taking care of my Chuanbao Pavilion's business." The two were polite. Chen Daoxian continued, "I am here this time, and I am going to ask your pavilion for information on the purchase of the heavenly secret talisman." Hearing this, Nishang Fairy's pretty face flashed a hint of surprise. "Dao-chan, is this ready for the power of good fortune? Our Chuanbao Pavilion does not accept the use of spirit stones to deduct the power of good fortune." Chen Daoxian bowed his hands. "This is nature. 10,000 drops of the power of good fortune, not to mention the real monarch of the world realm, is an ordinary cultivator of the Yuanshan stage, and it seems quite difficult to come up with such a large amount of the power of good fortune. Don't you see that when Qin Zhan took out all his old hands, he only took out 2,300 drops of the power of creation? Although Yuanshan Daojun is richer than Qin Zhan, it is not an easy thing to take out 10,000 drops of the power of creation at one time. Enough to make many Yuanshan Daojun go bankrupt." Seeing that Chen Daoxian was not lying, the expression on Fairy Nishang's pretty face suddenly became enthusiastic. "Fellow Daoist Chen, please wait, and I'll get the information on the heavenly secret talisman for fellow Daoist." "It is good." Chen Daoxian nodded. Fairy Nishang asked Chen Daoxian to sit in the hall and wait, and she didn't know where to go to get things. Compared with Fenglian, Chuanbao Pavilion is full of crisis. It seems that everywhere, there is a terrifying spiritual warning from Chen Daoxian. Here, Chen Daoxian does not dare to be presumptuous, let alone use his spiritual sense to investigate, and even his eyes do not dare to glance. Chan Daoxian entered the Chuanbao pavilion several times, and although he didn't see anyone, he was unable to handle the enormous pressure it brought him. He dared to be 100% sure that there were not only primordial spirit Daijins here, but there were far more than one. About a stick of incense. Fairy Nishang returned with the fairy cloud. Young Daoist Chan has been waiting for a long time. As soon as she entered the hall, Fairy Nishang apologized like Chan Daoxian. The fairy is serious. Chan Daoxian cupped his hands, and then changed the conversation. I don't know the intelligence of the heavenly secret talisman. Chundaoyu, let's see. I saw Fairy Nishang raised her hand and took out a metal box that was as black as ink. Chan Daoxuan's spiritual sense probed it, but it disappeared like mud into the river. This is made of extraterritorial meteorite iron, which can absorb the spiritual consciousness of monks, and its material is comparable to the 7th grade spiritual mine, which is extremely hard. Say it. Fairy Nishang pinched the spiritual art. The metal box slowly opened, and a jade slip lay quietly in the jade box. Seeing this jade slip, Chan Daoxian slowly stretched out his hand and took it out of the metal box. There are indeed restrictions. Chan Daoxian raised his head. I want this jade slip, it is good. The fairy in neon clothes smiles like a flower. After pondering for a while, Chan Daoxian continued. I wonder if fairy has spirituality for sale here? Spirituality? Fairy Nishang frowned. Fellow Taoist wants to buy spirituality? Spirituality is not cheap, I don't know if you bought it for refining Taoist soldiers or... Chan Daoxian did not hide it, and said bluntly, it is for the purpose of enlightening the Taoist soldiers for the purpose of protecting the Tao on the battlefield outside the territory. Hear this. Fairy Nishang guessed that Chan Daoxuan's identity must be the nephew and nephew of a big brother. Otherwise, with the cultivation base of the other party's world realm true monarch, it is impossible to come up with so much power of creation. Thinking of this, Fairy Nishang said with a smile, if fellow Taoists are just for Taoist soldiers, there is no need to buy spirituality, because it's really not worth it. Oh, what did the fairy mean? 7017K. Chapter 435. Taoist friends can buy Taoist soldiers eliminated from the battlefield outside the two realms. Hear this. Chan Daoxian was slightly taken aback. Second hand? Does this despise him for not having money? Seeing that Chan Daoxian did not speak, Fairy Nishang knew that he must have misunderstood, and quickly explained, fellow Taoist, don't think that these Tao soldiers were eliminated from the battlefield outside the territory, but they have been regrouped by my Chuanbao pavilion, and their strength is not weaker than before. How many? What's more, it is stronger than the new Taoist combination. Hearing these words, Chan Daoxuan's face relaxed slightly. Although most of the preachers are made of puppets, their spirituality is comparable to that of monks, but even monks have their strengths and weaknesses. For example, some monks are good at attacking, some are good at escaping, and some are good at defense. The same is true of Tao soldiers. In order to maximize the role of Tao soldiers in protecting Tao, many children of major forces often choose not one, but a complete team when choosing Tao soldiers. The Tao soldiers in this complete team have auxiliary defenses, those responsible for trapping the enemy, and those responsible for attacking and escaping. If it is said that the strength of the 6th-rank low-rank Taoist soldiers is comparable to that of the Yuanshan Taoist on the 1st and 2nd floors of the world realm, the team composed of a pair of 6th-rank low-rank Taoist soldiers can be compared with the Yuanshan Taoist on the 3rd layer of the world realm. You must know that there is a huge gap in strength between the 2nd layer of the world and the 3rd layer of the world. If the two are in a normal battle within 10 rounds, the 2nd layer Daojun of the world will be defeated. However, the Taoist team was able to compete with the Taoist on the 3rd layer of the world realm with a weaker level of strength. It can be seen that its ability to cooperate in combat is far superior to that of the human race cultivator. Chan Daoxian understood this information from the jade slips presented by Fairy Nishang. He is even more aware that the reason why the Taoist team can exert the strength of 1 + 1 is greater than 2 is due to the combination of formations constructed by the monks when they are attuned to the Taoist soldiers. Every Taoist soldier in the team is equivalent to a formation base of the formation. In theory, this array can be superimposed infinitely. In other words, the more soldiers there are, the stronger the strength will be. Compared with the human race monks, there is no problem of lack of close cooperation between the Taoist soldiers, because in essence they belong to the puppet life. The level of rigor is just like the intelligent robot of the previous life. For this kind of existence, the superposition array method is simply tailor-made for them. But this kind of Taoist squad also has a downside, that is, once one of the Taoist soldiers is destroyed, the formation of the entire Taoist squad will collapse. Even the remaining Dao soldiers still have strong strength, but they cannot fight beyond the ranks. Chen Daoxian knew the doorway here, so he was a little dissatisfied when he heard that Fairy Nishang was going to sell him second-hand goods. What he wants is the soldiers who can really sit in the family and the Qianyuan sword sect, not the eliminated goods on the battlefield. Seeing the non-committal expression on Chen Daoxuan's face, Fairy Nishang struck while the iron was hot and said, "Fellow Taoist," and later, talking. Fairy Nishang disappeared in the hall again. Less than a stick of incense. Behind Fairy Nishang, a Taoist team consisting of 5 Taoist soldiers followed and strode into the hall. Compared with Fairy Nishang, these 5 Taoist soldiers were much more taciturn. Since entering the hall, there has been no sound. But Chen Daoxian knew that they were no different from the Fairy Nishang standing in front of them. They were all puppet lives with intelligence. Just because it is life, Tao soldiers, like human monks, also have emotions, joys and sorrows. Only, the moment they were turned into Taoist soldiers, the orders of loyalty to their masters were implanted deep in their consciousness. It's like the soul seal that Chen Daoxian cast on the demons. Inside the hall, Fairy Nishang smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, look, these are the Taoist soldiers gathered from the battlefield outside the territory of my Chuanbao pavilion, and then rebuilt by the Master of Refining. I dare not say that they are better than all Taoist squads of the same rank, but they are by no means weaker than the average level of Taoist squads of the same tier." Heard. Chen Daoxian stepped forward and looked at the soldiers in front of him one by one. This Taoist squad is a defensive Taoist squad. Because in the team, only one Taoist soldier is responsible for the attack, but 2 are responsible for the defense. The remaining 2 Taoist soldiers, one is responsible for using the domain to suppress the enemy, and the other is responsible for taking everyone to escape at critical moments. Compared with the ordinary 4-person Taoist team, this Taoist team has one more. Perhaps it was the master craftsman of Chuanbao Pavilion who discovered the inadequacy when rebuilding the formation of the Taoist team. So he added a Taoist soldier and turned the 4-person Taoist team into a 5-person Taoist team. These are all 6th-order low-grade Taoist soldiers? Certainly. Fairy Nishang said with a smile, "We have Chuanbao Pavilion of 6th-rank middle rank and even 6th-rank high-rank Taoist soldiers, but they are not eliminated from the battlefield outside the territory, so the price." Chen Daoxian nodded. "What's the price of this Taoist team?" Fairy Nishang stretched out 3 fingers, 300,000 drops of the power of creation. Cough cough. As soon as Chen Daoxian took a sip of Lingcha, he coughed violently. He raised his head in disbelief and frowned. "How much? 300,000? When Chen Daoxian heard the words, he got up and wanted to leave. Seeing this, Fairy Nishang hurried forward and said, "Fellow Taoist Chen, don't be angry, you haven't got your medicinal pill yet." Saying that, Fairy Nishang showed a look of grievance. Chen Daoxian has no interest in acting like a puppet. He said solemnly, "The brand new Taoist team composed of 4 Taoist soldiers is only sold for 400,000 drops of the power of creation. And you Taoist soldiers were all eliminated from the battlefield outside the territory. The strength is not as good as the 4-person Taoist team, and the potential is far less. In the future, if my strength improves and I want to continue to add Taoist soldiers to the Taoist team, it will be more difficult to stack formations than a 4-person Taoist team. All kinds of flaws. You are actually cheap by 100,000 drops of the power of creation, just when I am collecting the rubbish." Hear Chen Daoxuan's words. Fairy Nishang secretly regretted that she had given the Taoist information and refining method to the other party for free. Otherwise, Chen Daoxian would never have understood the flaws of Dao soldiers so clearly. Seeing that Fairy Nishang didn't speak, Chen Daoxian knew that he was on the point, and he was even more certain in his heart. The value of these 5 Taoist soldiers was definitely not worth 300,000 drops of the power of good fortune. Although the Chuanbao Pavilion family has a great business, it is the nature of all businessmen to sell goods at a premium to obtain more profits, and Chuanbao Pavilion is no exception. After pondering for a while, Fairy Nishang said sternly, It seems that fellow Taoist Chun carefully looked at the Taoist refining method presented by my pavilion. Yes, the price of 300,000 drops of the power of creation is indeed a bit high. However, this eliminated Taoist squad is hard to come by. The price is lower than that of the brand new Taoist squad, and the strength is almost the same. The only disadvantage may be that the potential is less. But it is absolutely suitable for the current Taoist friend to protect the Tao. The Taoist squad in front of him is enough to exert the strength of the third-layer Taoist in the world. It is more than enough to protect the current Chun Daoxian. 200,000 drops of the power of creation. Chun Daoxian stretched out 2 fingers. 20,000? Fairy Nishang frowned. Chun Daoxian cut off 1/3 of the price of this Taoist team at once, which can be said to be quite ruthless. Compared with the brand new 4-person Taoist squad, the price is only half. 5 Taoist soldiers. If they spend spiritual enlightenment, they need to spend a full 50 points of spirituality, and their value has reached 500,000 drops of the power of creation. From the spiritual point of view of consumption, these Tao soldiers can't even recover the cost. But the reality is so cruel. The damaged Taoist team is like a damaged magic weapon. Even if it is re-repaired, the price is definitely far less than the new one. A long time. Fairy Nishang nodded with difficulty. Okay, 200,000 drops of the power of good fortune are 200,000 drops. But fellow Taoist Chun has to pay all the power of good fortune at one time. It's natural, Chun Daoxian nodded. But the power of 200,000 drops is too much. I need to go back and prepare. No problem. Fairy Nishang readily agreed. The two negotiated this big deal, and the relationship instantly became much closer. Although Fairy Nishang is also a Taoist soldier, she was trained to be a Taoist soldier responsible for selling goods, which is very different from the Taoist team responsible for protecting Taoism. The negotiation is over. Fairy Nishang invited. Fellow Taoist Chun, please come with me. Your Saint Yuan Dan will be refined in the next few days. Please also ask fellow Taoists to check it out in person. Good to say. Chun Daoxian bowed his hands, followed behind Fairy Nishang, and flew towards a spiritual mountain in the cave. In the spirit veins, a verdant mountain peaked in the blink of an eye. The two descended towards the peak of the mountain. On top of the mountain, an old man with white hair and beard was sitting cross-legged on the top of the mountain. In front of him, an alchemy furnace was spinning non-stop. Chun Daoxuan's consciousness swept away. Then I saw that inside the alchemy furnace, a group of orange-red flames was slowly roasting 5 groups of elixir liquid. Chun Daoxian recognized at a glance that this orange-red flame was exactly the secret method of spiritual fire, which is common among Yuaning cultivators' infant fire. This is Master Nya. Fairy Nishang pointed at the white-haired old man and introduced, Master Nya is a top-grade alchemist of the 5th rank, and it is more than enough to refine Saint Yuan pill. Although Chun Daoxian is not very proficient in alchemy, but he discerned from the aura on the 5 spiritual pills in the alchemy furnace, 3 of the 5 spiritual pills were 4th order Saint Yuan Dan, and 2 were 5th order Saint Yuan Dan. The 4th order Sheng Yuan Dan is mainly used to improve the cultivation of Jin Dan cultivators. The 5th order Saint Yuan Dan is an excellent treasure for improving the cultivation of Yuaning cultivators. What Chun Daoxian needs are these 2 5th order Saint Yuan Dan. It's just a pity that there are only 2 5th order Saint Yuan Dan. Although the white-haired old man didn't talk to him when Fairy Nishang introduced him, he couldn't help but say Chun Daoxuan's dull expression. This 5th order Saint Yuan fruit you sent is probably not stored for thousands of years. You are lucky enough to meet the old man, otherwise, if you switch to another alchemist, I am afraid you can only make a 5th order Saint Yuan Dan for you. Hear this explanation. Chun Daoxian finally felt better. He knew in his heart that what the old man surnamed Nya said was true. This 5th order Saint Yuan fruit was the reward obtained by the Qianyuan sword sect when he raised his sect to help Liang Jiuan. After all, isn't it thousands of years old? Elder Nya is tired. Chun Daoxian bowed his hands. Hearing this, the elder surnamed Ni's face relaxed, turned to look at Fairy Nishang, and said, Miss Qi, after finishing this potion, the credit I have saved is enough for me to exchange for a drop of Tianhua Yulu? Hearing this, Fairy Nishang said, Old Nya, please wait, I'll check first. After all, she took out a disc-shaped magic weapon and quickly checked it. Soon Fairy Nishang raised her head and said with a smile, Old Nya, The credit you have accumulated over the years is enough to exchange for a drop of Tianhua Yulu. It seems that I, Zion Yunsu, need another primordial spirit Dao Jun. Hear this. The body of the old man surnamed Nya couldn't help trembling slightly. Obviously, he was extremely excited. Chen Daoxian could see that although the old man surnamed Nya in front of him had reached the peak of nascent soul, his lifespan was running out. Otherwise, he wouldn't have this white beard and hair. The monk's cultivation base has reached the nascent soul stage, and unless he is deliberately disguised as an old man, his appearance will be very young. If any nascent soul cultivator has the image of an old man, it can only prove that his life essence is running out. From the Yuanying period to the Yuanshan period, not only does it need to meet the Tao realm and physical strength, but also the spiritual soul of the monk must be completely transformed. The old man surnamed Nya in front of him, the Tao realm and the physical body all meet the conditions for breaking through the primordial spirit stage. The only thing the opponent lacks is the soul. Tianhua Yulu. Chuanbao Pavilion actually even has this kind of treasure, Chen Daoxian secretly said. Like Tai Shen Shui, Tianhua Yulu is also a treasure for tempering the soul. The cultivator of the Yuanying period has it, and the grasp of breaking through to the Yuanshan period is even 3 points larger than Tai Shen Shui. That is to say, as long as the cultivator is not too stupid to add to it, he can basically be successfully promoted from the nascent soul stage to the nascent soul stage. That's what resources do. At this moment, Chen Daoxian also secretly moved. Since there is Tianhua Yulu in Chuanbao Pavilion, can he buy it? After all, Chuanbao Pavilion claims to sell even immortal artifacts. No matter how precious Tianhua Yulu is, it can't be compared to the pure yang immortal artifact, right? Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but feel hot in his heart. His current cultivation base has been promoted to the early stage of nascent soul, and after taking 2 5th order Saint Yuan Dan, his cultivation base will probably be promoted to the peak of nascent soul. And the rest, only the physical body and the soul are left behind. The flesh is easy to say, there is the fire of the devil, the big deal is to use the resources. Anyway, Chen Daoxian has already formulated a plan to open up the real demon world. Once this plan is successfully implemented, he will have no shortage of body refining resources. In addition to the physical body pass, only the soul pass is left. Logically, Shen Shengwen should not exist for Chen Daoxian, because he has a mysterious method of refining, Shunhai chapter. Unfortunately, the cultivation of Shunhai chapter requires time accumulation. And Chen Daoxian practiced so far it didn't take much time at all. One can imagine how his Shunhai Pian practiced. Since refining the mysterious method cannot help him break through the customs of God in a short time, he can only use resources to smash it. Chen Daoxian is quite familiar with this method. Just as his thoughts were turning, the old man surnamed Nya shouted loudly, "The medicine pill is almost ready. Pay attention to receiving the medicine pill." "It is good." Chen Daoxian nodded. 7017K. Chapter 436. Nice old words just finished. I saw 5 spiritual pills soaring into the sky. These 5 spiritual pills were 3 blue and 2 red, and they were 3 4th order Saint Yuan pills and 2 5th order Saint Yuan pills. Seeing this, Chen Daoxian did not dare to neglect. He quickly waved his hand to set up a space barrier to prevent Lingdan from escaping. The 5 spiritual pills slammed into the space barrier. As if they had hit the cotton wool, they were soft and unforced and were bounced back. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxian looked happy. It's just right. I saw him take out an empty jade bottle from the storage ring, and put the 5 elixir flying towards him into it one by one. Aside, Fairy Nishang saw Chen Daoxian put away the elixir, and congratulated him. Congratulations to fellow Daoist Chen for harvesting the Shengyuan pill. The cultivation base will soar just around the corner. Chen Daoxian hurriedly bowed his hands to return the salute, and his joy was beyond words. Xian borrows auspicious words. Old Nya didn't care about being polite to Chen Daoxian. He just said lightly, "Don't forget my Tianhua Yulu." Then he rode the light, left the peak of Lingshan and flew towards his cave. Watching old Nya leave, Chen Daoxian thought for a while, then tentatively said, "Dare to ask, Fairy, is the Tianhua Yulu from your pavilion for sale?" Of course it's for sale, but Tianhua Yulu is a treasure of refining gods, and the price is extremely high. Daoist friends must be mentally prepared. Dare to ask its price. Fairy Nishang stretched out a finger. 100,000 drops of the power of creation can buy 1 drop of Tianhua Yulu. Hiss, Chen Daoxian took a deep breath when he heard the words. He bought a 5-person Taoist team equivalent to the 3rd layer Taoist in the world, but only spent 200,000 drops of the power of creation. Buying a drop of Tianhua Yulu would cost 100,000 drops of the power of creation. No wonder the second-rate forces on the border of Xianyun continent didn't go to Chuanbao Pavilion to buy the treasure of refining god. On the one hand, even if they have the supreme treasure of refining gods, they are not sure that they can break through to the primordial spirit stage. On the other hand, this supreme treasure of refining gods is really too expensive. Not to mention Qianyuan Jianzong and other second-rate sects, even the current Chen Daoxian does not have the extra power of good fortune to buy it. But, although Chen Daoxian doesn't have enough power of good fortune now, for him who has mastered the production line of Qingmu Ding, the power of good fortune will be as much as possible in the future. Even Chen Daoxian's difficulty in obtaining the power of creation is lower than that of the Jiang family, because the Jiang family's Qingmu cauldron had to be refined bit by a 4th-order craftsman. According to a 4th-order refiner, it takes 3 years to refine a greenwood cauldron. A 4th-order alchemist of the Jindan stage, even if he does nothing in his life and uses it all to refine the greenwood cauldron, he can only refine less than 200 pieces. Although the Jiang family has a big business, how many 4th-order refiners can they have? Even if the Jiang family has tens of thousands of 4th-order refiners, how much of the greenwood cauldron can they have? Because the Aoki Ding has a limited lifespan. The greenwood cauldron refined by the 4th-order refiner cannot be preserved for hundreds of thousands of years of immortality, like the green wooden cauldron refined by the ancestors of the Jiang family. The Qingmu cauldron refined by Jiang Laozu can maintain immortality for hundreds of thousands of years. That is because he is a true immortal, and the power he masters is not the magic power of ordinary monks, but a higher level of immortal power. Treasures infected with immortal power have a touch of immortality and immortality themselves, and they can naturally be preserved for hundreds of thousands of years of immortality. The most typical example is the Pure Yang immortal artifact. There are not many Pure Yang fairy artifacts in the Phoenix Meteor realm, but apart from those damaged in battle, Chen Daoxian has never heard of any Pure Yang fairy artifacts that decayed because of time. After walking out of the Chuanbao Pavilion, Chen Daoxian, who returned with a full load, immediately returned to the mysterious realm of Xianshui and went into seclusion. Before closing, Chen Daoxian was still cautiously setting up a Jiugong array around him to prevent others from snooping. Xianshui's secret realm side hall. Wu Xiaoming sat cross-legged, but his consciousness was communicating with the Yuanshan Taoist in the Dongtian magic tool he was carrying. Master, he's back. Don't use your spiritual sense to probe. The formation he laid out is no trivial matter. Don't make him alert. A cold voice sounded in Wu Ziyiming's sea of consciousness. Yes, sect master. Wu Xiaoming lowered his head. But my subordinates think that the other party may have suspected me. It doesn't matter, this fellow Taoist must be going to Liangjiyuan. When that time comes, we'll have a long-term plan. That's all there is to it. Wu Xiaoming nodded. The main hall of the mysterious realm of Xianshui. Chen Daoxian knew nothing about Wu Ziyiming's plan. The thing he cares most about now is to quickly take the Shang Yuandan to raise his cultivation base to the peak of Yuaning. Even Chen Daoxian was considering whether to give up buying that Taoist team and choose to buy a drop of Tianhua Yulu to try to break through the Yuanshan period. But thinking that his physical body has not yet reached the level of condensed and indestructible real body, Chen Daoxian can only give up. Breaking through the physical condition of the Yuanshan stage is the easiest condition for other Yuaning true monarchs, but it is the most difficult one for Chen Daoxian. Because the immortal body he wants to condense is no trivial matter, but the real body of Zhu Rong. Although his condensed real body of Zhu Rong is indistinguishable from the legendary demon Zhu Rong, this gate is the real body of the demon gods, originally created by imitating the 12 demon gods. Even if he cultivated to the extreme, he could not be comparable to the 12 demon gods, but at least he could get a glimpse of the demon god's spirit. Forget it, it's still according to the plan, first by the Dao soldier squad, and wait until the family has gathered enough fortune power, and then make a long-term plan. Although Chen Daoxian carried a lot of spirit stones, compared with the spirit stone mines mastered by the Chen family, especially Qinyuan Jianzong, it was not known by how much. When he has refined all the spirit stone mines in the Qinyuan Jianzong territory, he will not know how many treasures he can buy from the Chuanbao Pavilion. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian was full of excitement. Sure enough, there are still plenty of resources and treasures in the big place. Unlike a small place like Wanxinghai, which seems to have abundant resources, there are actually only a handful of resources that can help high-level cultivators to cultivate. Shaking his head, Chen Daoxian didn't think too much. Immediately, he took out a jade bottle from the storage ring, and it was the medicine bottle that he received the Shengyuan pill in the Chuanbao Pavilion. Without saying a word, Chen Daoxian opened the jade bottle directly. The mana was slightly stimulated, and 5 Saint Yuan Dan filed out. Chen Daoxian glanced at the Cyan 4th Order Saint Yuan Dan, and finally focused his eyes on the 2 5th Order Saint Yuan Dan. The 4th Order Saint Yuan Dan has a miraculous effect on improving the cultivation of Jindan cultivators, but for him, the effect is not so obvious. If he took it, it would be a bit of a waste. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian put 3 4th Order Saint Yuan pills into the jade bottle, paused, and put back a red 5th Order Saint Yuan pill. This time there was only one red 5th Order Saint Yuan pill left in front of Chen Daoxian. Chen Daoxian calmed his heart, picked up the 5th Order Saint Yuan Dan, raised his head and took it down. Saint Yuan Dan melts at the entrance. Chen Daoxian only felt that he was submerged by a torrent of spiritual energy, and countless spiritual energy formed a column of spiritual energy above his head. Chen Daoxian's whole person was bathed in a pillar of spiritual energy. Fortunately, he was in the Hulidongshan at the moment, and there were still 9 palaces guarding the outside world, so there was no movement. But for Chen Daoxian himself, the change this aura light beam brought to his cultivation was too great. Chen Daoxian's original first-level cultivation in the nascent soul stage, under the bath of this aura light beam, visibly skyrocketed. The first floor of Yuanying, the second floor of Yuanying, the third floor of Yuanying. In less than a month, Chen Daoxian even crossed 2 small realms and broke through to the 3rd floor of nascent soul, and he was only 1 step away from reaching the middle stage of nascent soul. And now the aura beam of light still enveloped him. His cultivation continued to improve. Although the cultivation base has improved rapidly, due to Chen Daoxian's terrifying Avenue realm, the rapid improvement of the cultivation base did not cause any instability to his foundation. On the contrary, the 3rd floor of nascent soul is still too low compared to Chen Daoxian's Dao realm. With his great Dao realm, even if he breaks through to the primordial spirit stage now, it will not cause him any unstable foundation. Half a month later, Chen Daoxian's cultivation finally broke through to the middle stage of nascent soul, reaching the 4th level of nascent soul. Seeing this, Chen Daoxian's face was overjoyed, and what surprised him even more was that his cultivation was still improving, and the aura light beam brought by Shang Yuandan had not disappeared. In Dantian, the originally calm mana, like a tsunami at the moment, continues to soar. The quality of mana is also constantly improving. Chen Daoxian's nascent soul sat upright in the purple mansion, and his height continued to increase with the improvement of his cultivation. 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, until the middle stage of nascent soul breakthrough. Nascent soul sitting in the purple mansion, the 3-inch nascent soul suddenly sucked. The sea of mana outside the purple mansion was sucked into the stomach like a whale. But the strange thing is that Yuanying is only 3 inches tall, but it has absorbed so much high-quality mana without the slightest bloating. The only difference is that as the nascent soul absorbed the mana, the nascent soul, which was originally 3 inches tall, soared by 1 inch again, reaching 4 inches before it stopped. But nascent soul's height stopped growing, and the sea of mana outside Zifu did not stop skyrocketing. That's it. The aura light beam lasted for 3 months. Chen Daoxian's cultivation level from the 1st level of nascent soul to the 6th level of nascent soul reached the peak of the middle stage of Yuanying, and he was only 1 step away from breaking through to the later stage of Yuanying. This rocket seems to be able to cultivate the speed, and the monks of Wanxinghai have never heard of it. In fact, even the disciples of the Taiyin sect who mastered the Shengyuan fruit tree would not dare to use the Shengyuan pill to improve their cultivation as recklessly as Chen Daoxian. Because the improvement of the monk's cultivation is not enough to simply accumulate mana, it also requires the monk's soul, body and the realm of the avenue, all of which meet the corresponding conditions. Blindly raising the qi cultivation base blindly, the final result is only to go crazy. Chen Daoxuan's current physical cultivation has reached the threshold of condensing the indestructible real body, and he is only one step away from condensing Zhu Rong's real body. At this level of physical strength, even if he raises his qi cultivation base to the 9th level of nascent soul, he will not have any burden. As for the soul, Chen Daoxian is not too strong. However, due to cultivating the Shenhai chapter, Chen Daoxian broke through the sea of consciousness in the nascent soul stage, and his consciousness and soul had skyrocketed several times, which was comparable to that of ordinary monks in the later stage of nascent soul. Therefore, his qi refining cultivation base has risen to the 9th level of nascent soul, and his spiritual consciousness will not hold him back, and as his cultivation base skyrockets, his spiritual consciousness will also increase to a certain extent. As for the last item, it is also the one that restricts the monks the most, the Dao realm. On the contrary, it is the part that Chen Daoxian is best at. Therefore, with his foundation, even if he breaks through to the peak of nascent soul, there is no problem. This is also the reason why Fei Chunxue hopes that Chen Daoxian will use Sheng Yuandan to raise his cultivation base to the peak of Yuaning as soon as possible, because she knew that she could do it with Chen Daoxuan's foundation. As another cultivator, Fei Chunxue would never have such an unrealistic idea. Gourd Cave Days. In 3 months, the cultivation base will be raised to the peak of the middle stage of nascent soul. Chen Daoxian didn't stop, he worked hard, and wanted to directly raise his cultivation base to the peak of nascent soul. I saw that he took out a red Saint Yuandan from the storage ring again and swallowed it. Next moment, the aura light beam enveloped him again. Half-year later, when Chen Daoxian walked out of the Hulu cave, his cultivation base had already reached the 9th level of nascent soul. The only pity is that his mana has not been completely polished and reached the peak of nascent soul. But for Chen Daoxian, these are just some minor details. As long as he returns to Wanxinghai, he will spend a little time polishing it. Besides, his body and soul have not yet broken through. Even if he has raised his cultivation base to the peak of nascent soul, he will not be able to break through the primordial spirit stage and become the much-anticipated Yuanshan Daojun in Wanxinghai. Simply, Chen Daoxian no longer insisted, but chose to exit. Just as he was about to put away the 9-palace array, Chen Daoxian seemed to think of something, and hurriedly displayed the awakening of insects and cicadas. The secret technique of restraining the breath was displayed, and Chen Daoxuan's breath could be seen to decline with the naked eye. The 9th floor of Yuanying, the 8th floor of Yuanying, the 7th floor of Yuanying. In the end, Chen Daoxuan's cultivation level dropped to the 4th floor of nascent soul, and he finally stopped. In the middle of nascent soul's cultivation base, it is not very conspicuous in this capital of Su Kingdom. See, only then did Chen Daoxian put away the Jiugong formation with satisfaction. Next, Chen Daoxian still has 2 things to do. The first thing, of course, was to buy back the Taoist team he had reserved in Chuanbao Pavilion. Judging from the information presented to him by Chuanbao Pavilion, the strength of the Taoist soldiers is not weaker than that of ordinary Yuanshan period monks. And the team composed of Dao soldiers, its strength is able to fight beyond the ranks, and it is extremely ferocious. After buying this Taoist team, Chen Daoxian will have another trump card in his hand. The Stars Kendo chart in Jiugong Shuji formation are indeed strong enough for ordinary nascent soul cultivators, and they are more than enough as trump cards. But as Chen Daoxuan's strength and status continue to improve, the enemies he will face in the future will also become stronger and stronger. Sooner or later, he will meet Yuanshan Daojun. At that time there are not many cards on the body, but it is extremely dangerous. As for the second thing, it was his promise to Wu Mingxiu in the side hall, to send the other party to Liangjiuan. Chen Daoxian didn't care whether Wu Mingxiu belonged to the Sini religion or not, but since he took over the heavenly secret talisman Wu Mingxiu gave him and promised him, he would definitely do it. Now he would like to see what kind of expression Wu Mingxiu would have if he knew that he would not go to Liangjiuan at the critical moment. Chapter 437. Chuanbao Pavilion. Chen Daoxian walked out of the Chuanbao Pavilion again, with a bronze bracelet on his right hand. At the same time, the 200,000 drops of the power of creation he carried were all consumed. But the expression on Chen Daoxuan's face was not the slightest heartache, but full of excitement. It's finally here. Chen Daoxian tightened the bronze bracelet in his hand and said silently. The bronze bracelet in his hand was created by the 5-person Taoist team in the Chuanbao Pavilion. Chen Daoxian only needs to sacrifice them at a critical moment, and the 5 copper beads on this bronze bracelet will instantly turn into 5 6th-order low-grade Taoist soldiers, forming a battle against powerful enemies. According to Chuanbao Pavilion, the strength of this 5-person Taoist team is enough to resist the attack of the world's 3rd-layer Taoist, which is very powerful. With this Taoist team protecting him, Chen Daoxian instantly felt a sense of security. The world's 3rd-level Daojun is not comparable to ordinary Yuanshan Daojun. Even among Yuanshan Daojun, the monks who can reach the 3rd level of the world are the best among them. As for the 5th floor of the world, that is the level of the top Taoist. Only a first-class force like Wuji Xianmen has a 5th-layer Taoist in the world. The general first-class forces can have 1 or 2 world realm 3rd-layer Daojuns in charge, and it is already incredible. As for world realm 5th-layer Daojun, I dare not even think about it. In other words, with this Taoist team in hand, Wan Xinghai already has the foundation of a first-class force. Of course, the foundation here refers only to the high-end combat power used to sit down the forces. The background of Wan Xinghai, compared with other first-class forces, is still too far behind. Not to mention the rest, in Xianyun continent, first-class forces usually control several or even dozens of countries, and there are at least a few subordinate forces under their command. What's more, it can have dozens of second-rate forces to act as subsidiary forces and front-end thugs. Only in this way can it be called a first-class force. According to this goal, the current Wan Xinghai is still far behind. Unless Wan Xinghai can unify and integrate all the second-rate forces on the northwest frontier of Xianyun continent, can they be qualified to be the first-rate forces. In Fengyun realm, once a new first-class force is born, even Tianzuan City in Liangjiyuan will send a special envoy to confirm. Once the envoy confirms success, the faction will have the opportunity to add a seat in Tianzuan City. It can be said that only by stepping into the first-class forces can we truly stand at the top of the entire Phoenix Meteor realm. As for the ruling class of Fengyun world, they are all those ancient top sects and families. Only these top forces can decide the future and destiny of Fengyun realm. Chen Daoxian knew very little about the top forces in the Fengyun realm before, because they were all in the extraterritorial battlefield of Liangjiyuan, defending against the powerful enemies of the true demon realm. Actually, these top forces have been passing through Tianzuan City and controlling the entire Phoenix Meteor realm, making the world's cultivation forces dare not follow. The Taoist team was purchased from Chuanbao Pavilion, and Chen Daoxian did not stop, took the air shuttle, and flew towards a restaurant in the capital. Lingxi Building. Chen Daoxuan's consciousness swept away, looked at the restaurant in front of him, and immediately floated down from the escape shuttle. Enter the restaurant. A young servant stepped forward enthusiastically and greeted, "Senior, are you dating someone or?" "I have an appointment, box number 12. Heard." The little servant took out a disc-shaped magic weapon. After checking it, he stretched out his right hand with a smile and said, "Senior, please come with me." Chen Daoxian nodded slightly. Following behind the little servant, he walked to a box. "Senior, this is the box you reserved for number 12. Do you want to serve it now or later?" After thinking about it, Chen Daoxian said directly, "Now let's serve the food and serve all the best wine and food in your restaurant. Hear this." The young servant's eyes lit up, and he shouted in a shrill voice, "Okay, order a Lingxi feast in the 12th box." The little servant's voice was pulled by the elder. Chen Daoxian pushed open the door of box number 12 and walked in. He came to Lingxi Building, naturally, not to satisfy his appetite. In fact, he did date someone. Chen Daoxian made an appointment with no one else. It was the Jindanqi trail he met when he first set foot in the capital of Su 3 years ago. This Jindan stage trail was born in Wuji Xianmen. Although the other party's status in Wuji Xianmen is not high, he seems to have an extraordinary relationship in the door, and was assigned to the fat poor who oversees the space teleportation formation. Taking care of the space teleportation formation naturally includes charging all the cultivators who use the space teleportation formation for teleportation fees. The profits here are not trivial. Although the space teleportation array guarded by the little Taoist priest surnamed Jin Dan is only one of the teleportation arrays that connects the capital of Su Kingdom and the various outside cultivation forces. But how many monks ride this teleportation array every day? Even if this Jindan trail deducts a little teleportation fee every day, it will be a terrifying number over time. As for the Jindan little Taoist priest, it is even more incredible. His uncle was the one who was responsible for guarding the capital of Su Kingdom and the teleportation formation of Liangjiuan. As the guardian of the only space teleportation formation in Liangjiuan and Fenjianji, the name of this monk surnamed Gu, even in the capital of Su Kingdom, is a thunderous existence. As a cultivator at the nascent soul stage, the other party was able to take care of such an important teleportation formation, which shows how high the other party's position in Wuji Xianmen is. Originally, Chen Daoxian did not understand why a Yuaning cultivator was able to grab a lot of fat that Yuan Shen Daojun couldn't grab. Until he saw this fellow Taoist Gu Leiyun with his own eyes. The third floor of the world. Inside box 12. Chen Daoxian looked at the two monks who pushed in the door and stood up abruptly. So far, he finally met a person with the same cultivation base, who had a higher Dao realm than him. The cultivator named Gu Leiyun in front of him has reached the third level of the world's realm. The realm of recreating the vitality of the world. Chen Daoxian stared blankly at this fellow Taoist Gu in front of him. He couldn't believe his eyes. Aside, cultivator Gu surnamed Jindan was not surprised by Chen Daoxian's eyes. As an old fritter who often introduced customers to his uncle, he had seen too many Yuaning Zhenjuan, and after seeing his uncle, he showed a frightened expression. Senior Chen, this is my uncle Gu Leiyun, who is in charge of guarding the space teleportation formation of Liangjiuan and Fenjianji. Jindan cultivator Gu surnamed introduced. Uncle, this is the senior Chen I told you. After listening to his introduction, both Gu Leiyun and Chen Daoxian were looking at each other. Gu Leiyun was wearing a blue Taoist robe, with some purple lightning patterns embroidered on his Taoist robe, which looked mysterious and unusual. As for Gu Leiyun's appearance, it was rather unremarkable. He was not tall and had a relatively sturdy figure. The only thing worth commending was that the other party's eyes seemed to be very dazzling. Chen Daoxian knew that this was an external manifestation of the power and abnormality of the soul. This proves that this fellow Taoist Gu in front of him, who is about to be unable to restrain his soul that is about to transform, has stepped into the threshold of Yuanshan Daojun with one foot. Chen Daoxian was looking at each other. Gu Leiyun was also looking at Chen Daoxian. Gu Leiyun was very dissatisfied with Chen Daoxian, the cultivator who said before he left that he wanted to jump in the queue to take the space teleportation formation. Although Gu Leiyun is relying on the fat shortage of guarding the space teleportation array to earn cultivation resources, it does not mean that he likes people like Chen Daoxian who do not follow the rules, even if the price given by Chen Daoxian is very attractive. Friend Chen, Gu Leiyun's voice was like the collision of gold and iron, very infiltrating. Although you are willing to bid 1,000 drops of the power of good fortune in exchange for a place to go to Liangjiuan, you must know that this time the place to go to Liangjiuan has already been made full. You're jumping in the queue now, which means that I have to remove one fellow Taoist from the full quota. This matter, it's not easy to handle. The elder Gu Leiyun deliberately pulled his voice. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian felt helpless. A space teleportation quota originally only required 50 drops of the power of good fortune, but because he temporarily cut the queue and broke the rules, he spent 20 times the power of good fortune for this. In this way, listening to this Gu Leiyun's tone, it seems that he is not very satisfied. Really greedy, Chen Daoxian secretly said. However, Chen Daoxian said with a smile, fellow Taoist Gu, forgive me, I retreated at the Feng Lion, and I had a feeling for a while, so I spent a little more time, so I missed this queue. He paused. But the 1,000 drops of the power of good fortune are indeed the only power of good fortune left. If fellow Taoists are unwilling, then they will have to wait for the next ride. Speaking of this, Chen Daoxian sighed and seemed to be annoyed that he couldn't go to Liangjiuan this time. When Chen Daoxian spoke, Gu Leiyun stared at the expression on Chen Daoxian's face. But he watched for a long time, Except for the annoyed and painful expression on Chen Daoxuan's face, he couldn't see anything else. As the head of the Chun family, Chen Daoxuan's own acting skills are naturally qualified. How can a person who guards the space teleportation array all day see the flaws? Seeing that Chen Daoxian couldn't squeeze more oil and water, Gu Leyun said, "Okay, I will make an exception for you. Thank you, fellow Daoist Gu." Chen Daoxuan's face changed suddenly, and he immediately bowed his hands to him with a smile. Immediately, Chen Daoxian took out 10 jade bottles from the storage ring, and each jade bottle was filled with the power of good fortune. Gu Leyun's consciousness was swept away, and he immediately smiled. Fellow Daoist Chen is refreshing. This seed is not a person who inks ink. Fellow Daoist, please take it well. After all, Gu Leyun took out a blackwood token from the storage ring and handed it to Chen Daoxian. This is the order of the two realms, Gu Leyun explained. With it, you can take the space teleportation formation between Liangjiyuan and the capital of Su Kingdom. After explaining, the other party warned again, remember, this space teleportation formation only recognizes tokens and not people, so fellow Daoists must not lose it. Thank you, fellow Daoist Gu, for clarifying the confusion. I already know it. Just after the two of them finished talking, outside the box on the 12th, the servant led a group of maids, knocked on the door and entered the box, and served Chen Daoxian with wine and food. Haven't waited for the food to be served. Gu Leyun nodded lightly and said, "Fellow Daoist Chen, enjoy it by yourself. Forgive me for not being able to accompany you." After all, regardless of Chen Daoxuan's reaction, he disappeared into the box, leaving behind the cultivator Gu surnamed Jindan, who looked embarrassed in the box. Previous. Senior, forgive me, my uncle is not good at dealing with people, so he. Seeing Chen Daoxuan's unkind face, cultivator Gu surnamed Jindan complained in his heart. As soon as his uncle left, he was extremely unrestrained, but it was like roasting him on the fire. And looking at his expression, it's not the first time that his uncle has done this kind of thing. Chen Daoxian didn't feel anything about Gu Leyun's arrogance. A cultivator at the nascent soul stage, the realm of the great Dao is actually higher than him. Although Chen Daoxian took a lot of treasures to quickly improve his cultivation, in order to let his cultivation catch up with the Dao realm. But there is no doubt about Gu Leyun's talent. At least Chen Daoxian has never seen the Yuanying Jinjuan in the third layer realm of the world. This great cloud is the first. No wonder he was able to occupy the fat gap of the Liangjiyuan teleportation formation. In Wuji Zaiman's point of view, with Gu Leyun's talent, as long as he does not fall in the future, let alone becoming a 5th-level Taoist in the world, he will be a Taoist in the realm of creation, which is also very hopeful. Inside box 12, the servant led the maid to retreat. Jindan cultivator Gu surnamed was sitting like a needle. His uncle disappeared in a teleport, leaving him alone to bear the wrath of a nascent soul true monarch. How could this not make him angry? But no matter how angry he was, he had to quell the anger of Chen Daoxian, who was disgraced. "I'll ask you." Cultivator Gu Jindan hurriedly bowed down. The capital of Su country has a strict air forbidden formation. Why is your uncle still able to teleport? The forbidden space in the capital of Su country was arranged by my Wuji Xianmen, and naturally it can leave a gap, allowing important people in the door to escape and teleport. Hearing this explanation, Chen Daoxian nodded. As he expected, this forbidden space formation is not effective for everyone. On the other hand, it also proved from the side that this Gu Leyun status in Wuji Xianmen is no trivial matter. Last question. Cultivator Gu Jindan breathed a sigh of relief and cupped his hands. "Senior, may I ask? Your uncle's cultivation base is the same as mine, and he is only at the nascent soul stage. Why can the Dao realm reach the 3rd level of the world realm?" This is what Chen Daoxian is most puzzled about. According to concubine Chengshi's statement, cultivators in the Yuanying stage can only cultivate to the 2nd floor of the world realm at most. However, Gu Leyun obviously did not follow this rule that Fei Chunxue said. This undoubtedly made Chen Daoxian very puzzled, because even with the help of a 100-fold understanding, he knew how difficult it was to condense a real sun star out of thin air in the Xianhuang realm. In other words, this is not something that Yuanying cultivators can do at all. Feeling the difficulties, coupled with Fei Chengshi's remarks, Chen Daoxian gave up the idea of breaking through the 3rd layer of the world. Instead, he chose to first break through the cultivation base to the primordial spirit stage, and then improve the Tao realm. In this way, it is undoubtedly much less difficult to improve the realm of the great Tao. But now it seems that it is not necessarily impossible to raise the Tao realm to the third layer of the world realm in the nascent soul stage. Hear this question. Jindan cultivator surnamed Gu breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, Senior originally wanted to ask this. It's very simple, because my uncle once refined a small piece of golden crow, and then entered the third floor of the world, 7017 K. Chapter 438. Golden Crow Fragment again. Inside box 12. Chen Daoxian frowned and said nothing. Seeing that Chen Daoxian didn't speak, the cultivator Gu Jindan didn't dare to speak, so he had to wait quietly. A long time. Chen Daoxian waved his hand. Okay, I have nothing to do with you here, you can go. Hear this. Jindan cultivator Gu surnamed was granted amnesty, and immediately bowed his hands to Chen Daoxian. Thank you, true monarch Quan Ran, the junior retire. Say it. Cultivator Gu Jindan walked out of the box without looking back. The outsiders all left, and only Chen Daoxian was left in the box. He glanced at the dazzling array of dishes and delicacies on the wine table, shook his head and said, The true monarch on the third floor of the world is really arrogant, and he wasted the good wine and dishes on this table. As the country where the Wuxia sect is located, Su country is far more prosperous than Yun country, and Wan Xinghai. The capital of Su Kingdom is also the most prosperous fairy city in the entire Su Kingdom. As the leading restaurant in the capital of Su State, Lingxi Lu can be imagined. In order to entertain Gu Yun, Chen Daxuangwang spent 10 drops of the power of good fortune. Unexpectedly, the other party didn't appreciate his face, and he left without looking back after receiving the money. Obviously, he didn't want to be associated with an unknown, scattered cultivator true monarch like Chen Daoxian. However, Gu Yun did not appreciate his face, but Chen Daoxian wanted to taste the delicacies of Lingxi Lu. The purpose of coming to the capital of Su Kingdom this time has all been overfulfilled. Originally, I was thinking of going to Liangjiyuan and looking for an alchemist to refine St. Yuan pill, but I didn't think that I didn't need to go to Liangjiyuan. In the Chuanbao Pavilion in the capital of Su Kingdom, there are alchemists who can refine this pill. Saves Chen Daoxian a lot of hard work. Coupled with the Taoist team he purchased, as well as a heavenly secret talisman and information about the heavenly secret talisman, Chen Daoxian's trip was less than 3 years, but he had gained a lot. Right now, as long as you send the of plague in the mysterious realm of Xianshui away, you can leisurely return to Wangxinghai, marry the concubine Chen Shui, and preside over the alliance between the Chen family and the Qianyuan sword sect. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian only felt that the spirit wine in his mouth was sweeter, and couldn't help but exclaimed, Good wine. Time flies by, and in the blink of an eye, another year has passed. The main hall of the mysterious realm of Xianshui. Chen Daoxian looked at Wu Mingxiu, who was very respectful in front of him, and said in a flat tone, I don't know if your so-called going to Liangjiyuan to find treasures to save people is true or not, and I don't care about that. In short, if I take your treasure, I will definitely send you to Liangjiyuan. Say it. Chen Daoxian took out a black token from the storage ring and tossed it gently. The black token immediately flew towards Wu Mingxiu's hand. When Wu Mingxiu saw this token, his face was overjoyed. The members of their Sini sect were shoved by the Wuji immortal sect like a mouse all day long. It was many times more difficult than ordinary monks to obtain these 2 world orders. Usually, these 2 world orders are only issued by Gu Yun, who guards the space teleportation array. As for monks whose cultivation base is lower than the nascent soul stage, they are often unable to purchase the order of the 2 realms. In fact, very few monks with a cultivation base lower than the nascent soul stage went to Liangjiyuan. After all, Liangjiyuan is not a safe area, but it is the front line of Fengyun realm and True Demon realm. Going there with a cultivation base lower than the nascent soul stage is really no different from courting death. This is why Chen Daoxian was so surprised when he first heard that Wu Mingxiu was going to Liangjiyuan. After receiving the orders from the 2 realms, Wu Mingxiu showed a look of surprise on his face. He bowed deeply to Chen Daoxian and said, The kindness of the true monarch is unforgettable for the younger generation. No, we're a fair deal, And there's no such thing as kindness or kindness. The expression on Chen Daoxuan's face was still cold. Hearing these inhumane words, Wu Mingxiu still showed a grateful expression on his face. Chen Daoxian quietly watched the other party act in front of him, and couldn't help sneering in his heart. But he said, "Don't forget, the space teleportation formation to Liangjiyuan will be opened after a month. Junior dare not forget." Wu Mingxiu bowed again. Seeing his appearance, Chen Daoxian waved his hand and said, "Okay, you go down first, I still need to practice." "Yes, the junior retire." "Say it." Wu Mingxiu slowly withdrew from the main hall and flew towards his side hall. Out of the main hall, a voice sounded in Wu Mingxiu's sea of consciousness. "This person is quite hidden." "Master, what's wrong?" Wu Mingxiu was puzzled. "It's nothing, this person was in the early stage of nascent soul, but this time I observed him and found that his cultivation has actually reached the 9th level of nascent soul." Hearing this, Wu Mingxiu took a deep breath. It has only been 3 years, and the other party has been able to advance all the way from the early nascent soul to the late nascent soul. Is this taking Shengyuan Dan? Wu Mingxiu's first reaction was the famous Shengyuan fruit of the Taiyin sect. Speaking out his guess, the leader of Sini sect nodded. It should be this thing, but he can improve his cultivation from the early nascent soul to the late nascent soul in such a short period of time, and it is not enough to rely on Shengyuan Dan alone. The foundation of the other party is very strong, and it is also appalling, but I don't know which top force he is a disciple of. Wu Mingxiu didn't say a word when he heard the leader's words. Although the sect leader of Sini religion is astonishingly talented, and his own cultivation is even more of a monarch of the primordial spirit, but the teachings of Sini religion doom them to be incompatible with the sect forces in the entire Fengyun realm. Therefore, Sini religion is not only hiding in Wuji Xianmen, but also out of Zhongzhou, and there is no force that can accommodate them. Even the loose cultivators didn't like this group of people very much. Sect Master, the Qishui Kingdom uprising failed this time, and the strength of my teaching was completely lost. This trip to Liangjiyuan is even more uncertain. Hearing Wu Mingxiu's dejected words, the leader of Sini sect smiled lightly. Although the Qishui Kingdom uprising failed this time, it also made me see the biggest problem of our Sini sect. Hearing this, Wu Mingxiu was puzzled and said, "I also asked the teacher to show me." "Mingxiu, what do you think of the people I teach in Zhongzhou?" Wu Mingxiu frowned, and after a while he slowly said, "The reputation is extremely bad." It's not easy. The leader of the Sini sect laughed. "It's really not easy to get you, the elder of the Sini sect, to say what I have to say about my sect's reputation." The leader of Sini sect paused. "You are right, I have a very bad reputation for Sini sect. Even if the sect and the Shoshin family hate us, even the loose cultivators hate us. Do you know why? There are too many black sheep in our teaching." Wu Mingxiu was decisive. "You're right. Before, we only cared about strengthening the power of Sini religion, and we recruited too many desperados. And these people in the loose cultivation are the people who commit murder and evil. How can they implement it when they come to my teaching? My new doctrine?" The leader of the Sini religion sighed. "The Qishui Kingdom uprising has made me see it clearly. With these people, my Sini religion will never be able to overthrow the sect and the immortal clan that are pressing down on us." Wu Mingxiu nodded in agreement. "That's the truth, the sect and the Shoshin family slaughtered us, and the loose cultivators also excluded us. Our new doctrine is obviously for the loose cultivators in the world, but now it has become a kind of evil cultivator. It's a pity that we understood this truth too late. In addition to the scattered members of Sini religion, now there are only you and me left. No, it should be said that you are the only leader left in Sini religion. My deity has been destroyed, and now this body is just a clone after all." Speaking of this, Wu Mingxiu's expression was gloomy. "No, it's not too late. As long as this trip to the two realms, I can obtain the treasures in the real immortal ruins, everything will be in time." The leader of the Sini sect cheered Wu Mingxiu. "With this treasure, we will have enough resources to regroup and overthrow the rule of the sect family. Mingxiu, don't forget, since ancient times, these sects only know how to fight within, not to defend against the enemy. Especially this Wuji Xianmen, which obviously occupies the land of Zhongzhou with the most abundant resources in the Phoenix meteor realm, but just doesn't fulfill the duty of resisting the real demon realm. and only knows how to frantically exploit the loose cultivator. The sect family is immortal. Not only will my scattered cultivator never emerge, but the Phoenix meteor realm is also in danger. These deafening remarks finally made the depressed Wu Mingxiu regain his morale, and his mood was high again. The leader is right. What if the deity is destroyed? My Dao realm is still there. Even with this clone, I can restore my former strength. Hearing this, the leader of Sini sect laughed. A month later, in the capital of Su country, countless escaping shuttles flew towards a huge space in the city. Today, it is once every 5 years, the day when the Liangjiyuan space teleportation formation is opened. Chen Daoxian and Wu Mingxiu were on an escape shuttle, and both of them remained silent. After about a stick of incense, Chen Daoxian closed his eyes and opened his eyes, and said, "We're here, let's go down." Yes. Chen Daoxian got off the escape shuttle, followed by Wu Mingxiu. The two came out of the escaping shuttle. Only then did he realize that under his feet, it was the huge space teleportation formation. The formation base of this space teleportation formation is much larger than the formation base of any space transmission formation Chen Daoxian has ever seen. Look around. There are at least hundreds of thousands of people standing on this formation. As the saying goes, as soon as people pass the sea of 10,000 people, hundreds of thousands of people stand in the same space teleportation array, which shows how big the scope of this space teleportation array is. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered together, and there was only a buzzing sound in Chen Daoxian's ears. Seeing this, he waved his hand, and a soundproof cover was put down by him, and his ears were immediately clean. Not long after he put the soundproof cover on, a familiar voice passed through the soundproof cover and entered Chen Daoxian's ears. It was the voice of Ge Leyun, the guardian of this space teleportation array. Everyone, the 5-yearly two-world teleportation formation is about to open. Please prepare yourself. The monks who have the two-world order, please take out your two-world order. Hear this. Everyone took out black tokens from various storage instruments. Looking at the true monarch Yuaning holding the black token in front of him, Chen Daoxian knew why Ge Leyun was so arrogant. Without him, this guy is too rich. Leaving aside the Wuxia immortal sect behind him, Chen Daoxian didn't even know how much money this guy was greedy for relying on this space to teleport the formation. According to the quotation of Jindan cultivator surnamed Gu, the price of one order of the two realms is 50 drops of the power of creation. Chen Daoxian didn't know how many drops of the 50 drops of the power of creation would be collected by Wuji Xianmen, but it was absolutely impossible to collect them all. Even if the 50 drops of the power of good fortune were received by the Wuji Xianmen 49 drops, Ge Leyun only covets 1 drop of ink, and hundreds of thousands of true monarchs are also hundreds of thousands of drops of the power of good fortune. What about 10 drops? That's not millions of good fortune? When Chen Daoxian thought of this, his heart could not help twitching. Darling, he originally thought that he had the Aoki Ding production line, and it was exaggerated enough to extract 200,000 drops of the power of creation a year. Unexpectedly, the speed at which Ge Leyun made money was no less than that of him now. Of course, it's just him now. Chen Daoxian, who mastered the industrial production of Qingmu Ding, will have the power of good fortune in the future, which is unimaginable for outsiders. Not to mention that Ge Leyun earns millions of drops of the power of creation in 5 years, he earns millions or even tens of millions of drops of the power of creation in a year, and is not in the eyes of Chen Daoxian, because compared with Qingmu Ding's automatic refining of the power of good fortune, the power of good fortune earned by Ge Leyun is really nothing. At the moment when everyone took out the black token, the space teleportation array made a rumbling sound. Immediately afterwards, rays of light lit up and connected together at the feet of Chen Daoxian and others. Formation started. Compared with the space teleportation formation that Chen Daoxian used to ride, the speed of this cross-border teleportation formation seems to be extremely slow. Chen Daoxian waited for half a cup of tea. It finally connected all the light into one piece. Just when the formation light was connected, the monks holding the black tokens were covered with a transparent film, except for Chen Daoxian. Senior Yu. Aside, Wu Mingxiu looked at him in surprise. Just now, Chen Daoxian didn't take out the black token. He just thought that Chen Daoxian was pretending to be cold, but he didn't expect that the other party didn't have the order of the two realms. Didn't you go to Liangjiyuan to search for treasures to save people? I'll fulfill you and give you my Liangjie order. Hear this. Wu Mingxia's chest kept rising and falling. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Chen Daoxian. It is the leader of the Sini religion, who is hiding in the Dongtian artifact. Wu Mingxiu handed him the order of the two realms in his hand, and the leader of Sini sect nodded to Wu Mingxiu, then looked at Chen Daoxian, cupped his hands and said, "How did fellow Daoists find out? It was my first time out of the mysterious realm of Xianshui, and I set up a formation. Also, is the Daoist primordial spirit who created chaos in the city that time also you? Fellow Daoist is thoughtful, and I admire him." The leader of Sini religion cupped his hands, however. "I think fellow Daoists may have misunderstood my Sini religion. We are not the evil cultivators preached by Wuji Xianmen." "I know," Chen Daoxian nodded, "but whether you are evil or not has nothing to do with me, and I don't want to get involved in the grievances between you and Wuji Xianmen. Daoist friends' concerns can be understood by me, but I still want to invite Daoist friend to go to Liangjiyuan to explore the ruins of the true immortal." Hear this. Chen Daoxian frowned. "Look for me to explore the ruins of the true immortal?" He seemed to think of something and he immediately reacted. "You mean the heavenly secret talisman is the key to this true immortal ruins?" "Exactly." The sect leader of Sini sect glanced at the formation of light that was completely connected under his feet. "Time is running out. If fellow Daoists want to explore this true immortal ruin with Xia, they can go to the Acropolis of Tianzuan City Tianlan in 5 years. The city is looking for me." Tianlan City. Chen Daoxian repeated. Chat room. The formation was completely activated, and all the monks holding the two world orders disappeared in front of Chen Daoxian. The formation base suddenly exuded a violent high temperature, and the water vapor in the air was transpired into a vast expanse of white. Across the water vapor, Chen Daoxian looked at Wu Mingxiu with a faint smile on his face. "Dao Yuwu is so deceiving, don't you want to explain it to me?" Wu Mingxiu was very calm, and he smiled and said, "I hope fellow Daoists forgive me for my helpless act." 7017 K. Chapter 439. Lingxi Building Box. A wisp of aroma escaping with the poured tea. "Please." Wu Mingxiu picked up the teacup and respectfully handed it to Chen Daoxian. Chen Daoxian took the teacup, took a sip, put down the teacup and said, "You are so blatantly revealing your identities in front of me. Aren't you afraid that I will expose you to Wuji Xianmen?" "Of course I'm afraid." Wu Mingxiu said with a smile. "However, for exposing us, how much benefit will it be to you, Dao Chan? Although Xianyunzu has a vast territory, its essence is still the land of Zhongzhou occupied by Wuji Xianmen. In recent years, Wuji Xianmen has not been able to expand outside. In addition to the large amount of resources in the state, it also has the merits of my new doctrine. From this point of view, the faction that you belong to, fellow Daoist, can be considered to take advantage of my new doctrine. As a fellow Daoist, you won't be able to avenge your kindness and revenge, right?" Fellow Daoist Wu is very articulate. Chen Daoxian snorted. "If I guess correctly, you have been following me from the moment I set foot in the capital of Su country?" "That's right," Wu Mingxiu nodded. "The leader holds the core components of the heavenly secret talisman. Fellow Daoist Chen carries the heavenly mystery talisman with him, and the leader can naturally sense fluctuations." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian nodded suddenly. "So it is," he said again. "That's why you guys just planned on it, and wanted to use the heavenly secret talisman to trick me into sending you to Liangjiyuan, and then take the opportunity to kill me and explore the ruins of the true immortal?" This time Wu Mingxiu shook his head unceasingly. Young Daoist Chan misunderstood. "My Sini sect is not an evil cultivator, so how can we kill innocent people? It is indeed wrong for us to use fellow Daoists to go to Liangjiyuan, but the leader and I have absolutely no intention of killing fellow Daoists by taking the opportunity." Chen Daoxian stared at each other's eyes, and Wu Mingxiu looked at him frankly. "A long time." Chen Daoxian said, "Even if you don't have the idea of killing people and stealing treasures, it is an indisputable fact that your Sini sect uses me. As for whether to cooperate with you, I have to think about it carefully." Hearing this, Wu Mingxiu sighed and nodded. "I can understand the thoughts of fellow Daoists, but the treasures in this true immortal ruins are no trivial matter. And this is not the first time I have explored new doctrines. It can be said that if you want to explore this real immortal ruins, it is the best choice to cooperate with our Sini religion. This time Chen Daoxian was taken aback. You mean this true immortal ruins have already been explored? Of course, well-preserved relics of true immortals are very rare even in Liangjiuan. These relics of true immortals have naturally been explored. Wu Mingxiu nodded as a matter of course, but fellow Taoists, don't worry, the real immortal ruins we're going to explore, even if we look at the entire Liangjiuan, are among the top 3 existences. Although it has been explored by many people, it is mostly on the fringes, and the core area has never been entered. Since the core area is unexplored, how can you enter? Chen Daoxian sneered. Could it be that your Sini sect did what the top forces in the Fengyun world couldn't do? Taoists' words are not good enough. Wu Mingxiu shook his head. In terms of strength, I naturally do not dare to compare with the top forces, but to explore the ruins of the true immortal, strength is not an absolute factor. In addition to strength, chance and luck are the most important. If a monk wants to enter the core area, he must master the core components of the heavenly secret talisman. This is the key to unlocking the core area of the true immortal ruins. That's why I said that if you want to explore this true immortal ruins, it is best to cooperate with us. Choose. This time, Chen Daoxian finally knew why the other party was so confident, and after he understood everything, he would choose to cooperate with the other party. The last question, why did you choose me? I never thought of choosing a fellow Taoist, but simply wanted to use the hands of a fellow Taoist to go to Liangjiuan. After all, we are currently wanted by Wuxia men, and we can't take the space teleportation array to Liangjiuan normally. However, the sect master finally chose fellow Taoists because of the strength of fellow Taoists. Saying that, the other party glanced at the bronze bead on Chen Daoxian's right wrist, intentionally or unintentionally. Feeling Wu Mingxiu's gaze, Chen Daoxian froze in his heart. This person's eyes are really vicious. It can be seen that this person's cultivation is by no means as simple as he looks on the surface. Chen Daoxian didn't believe that a cultivator of the Purple House period could have such insight. After being silent for a while, Chen Daoxian nodded and said, I need to think carefully about exploring the ruins of the true immortal. It's okay. Wu Mingxiu smiled and handed a jade talisman. This is my communication talisman. If fellow Taoists decide to cooperate with my Sini sect, they can find me in 5 years. It is good. Chen Daoxian nodded. Wu Mingxiu raised the teacup, replaced the wine with tea, and drank it all in one go. Then he put down the teacup, strode out of the box, and left the Lingxi building. Watching Wu Mingxiu leave, Chen Daoxian also drank the spirit tea in his hand, and gradually made a decision in his heart. Tianyinzong. 1000 Array City. The space teleportation array continued to flicker, and finally, a figure appeared in the space teleportation array. The Tianyinzong cultivator who was on duty saw someone walking out of the space teleportation formation. First, he rubbed his eyes in disbelief, and immediately took out a communication jade talisman and quickly reported it to the sect. Although Tianyinzong had a teleportation formation connected to the capital of Su Kingdom, this teleportation formation was rarely activated. Before Chen Daoxian went to the capital of Su Kingdom, this space teleportation array had not been used for hundreds of years. First, Tianyinzong is located in the northwest border of Xianyunzhu, which is extremely far away from Zhongzhou, and the teleportation array is expensive. Secondly, the strength of Tianyinzong is too weak, and the capital of Su Kingdom is one of the largest immortal cities in the jurisdiction of Wuxia men. There, the mere nascent soul monks are nothing at all. Even if the ordinary Yuanshan Daojun went there, he had to be a low-key person, without the slightest privilege. Tianyinzong is also the leading force in the northwest frontier of Xianyun continent, so why bother going to that place to be uncomfortable? In addition, when Qianyuan Jianzong responded to the call of Tianzuan City, he raised his sect to help Liangjiyuan, but it ended up losing even the foundation of the sect. This change made the disciples of Tianyinzong in all dynasties tremble at the other side of the space teleportation formation. Even if there are disciples in the sect who choose to experience, they will choose to go to other places instead of taking this teleportation array to the capital of Su Kingdom. But this situation has changed since Chen Daoxian took the teleportation array to the capital of Su country 3 years ago. Received a message from the disciples in the door. Soon a figure appeared in front of Chen Daoxian. It was the suzerain of Tianyinzong Zhou Chongshan. Si Chen Daoxian. Zhou Chongshan's face changed constantly, and he looked like he was hesitating to speak, but he finally bowed his hands to Chen Daoxian and said, I have seen Chen Daoxian. Fellow Taoist Zhou this is. Chen Daoxian looked puzzled. Fellow Taoist Chen, you'd better go back to Wan Xinghai and take a look. Heard. Chen Daoxian's complexion changed suddenly. He ignored etiquette and grabbed Zhou Chongshan's sleeve. He said with a gloomy expression, What happened to Wan Xinghai? Zhou Chongshan sighed and explained the ins and outs of the matter. Wuxia, Qinyuan sword sect. A figure instantly appeared in the space teleportation formation of Qinyuan Jianzong. Before the disciples guarding the teleportation formation could identify Chen Daoxian's identity, Chen Daoxian's figure immediately disappeared. In the sky, an escaping light flew towards the cave where Fei Chenxue lived. Boom! The door of a majestic palace was violently pushed open by Chen Daoxian. Chen Daoxian was full of anger and strode into the hall. Inside the hall, a woman in white is sitting in front of the guqin, stroking the strings. Hearing the huge movement of the temple door being pushed open, the woman in white who fell into contemplation slowly raised her head. Seeing Chen Daoxian appear in front of her, the surprise in Fei Chengxi's eyes flashed away. But then she saw the anger on Chen Daoxian's face. Dong dong dong. Chen Daoxian walked towards her step by step. As Chen Daoxian approached, Fei Chenxue felt a huge pressure on her weak body. It seems that these days have suffered too many grievances. Sudden. A line of clear tears slid down her pretty face. Seeing this line of clear tears, the anger in Chen Daoxian's chest was instantly extinguished. He stepped forward, stretched out his hand and gently wiped away the tears from Fei Chenxue's face, and said, I heard that you are going to marry a direct disciple of Wuji Xianmen, is that true? Fei Chengxi's eyes were red and she nodded slightly. He came for Emperor Yes Bell? Chen Daoxian could not have imagined that, apart from this, Wan Xinghai had any other treasures that could attract a direct disciple of Wuji Xianmen. You must know that those who can become direct disciples of Wuji Immortal Sect are at least at the primordial spirit stage. Moreover, according to the agreement reached between Tianzuan City and Wuji Xianmen, all Yuanshan monks of Wuji Xianmen will be sent to Liangjiyuan to serve, and the service period is 500 years. Therefore, many direct disciples who have reached the primordial spirit stage will go to great lengths to find something to protect the Tao, in order to prevent accidents in the battlefield outside the two realms abyss. After all, the foreign battlefield is extremely dangerous. There is no world monster that will give face to the human race cultivator. When the two meet, either you die or I live. And the Emperor Yu Bell of the Qinyuan sword sect is a well-preserved pure yang fairy. Chen Daoxian had already seen the horror of its power. It can be said that with this treasure, a Yuanshan Daojun on the 3rd floor of the world realm can burst into strength comparable to the Daojun on the 5th floor of the world realm. This shows the power of the pure yang immortal artifact. Such a treasure was known to the disciples of the Wuji Immortal Sect, who were about to go to the battlefield outside the two realms. Is there any reason not to it? Although Tianzuan City clearly forbids the infighting of the forces of Fenjianji Zongmen, however, with the strength of the opponent, it is easy to deal with a second-rate force that even a primordial spirit cultivator does not have. To deal with Qinyuan sword sect, the other party doesn't need to make a big deal at all. Fei Chenxue red eyes nodded. They captured Qinzhan. I really have no choice, I can only agree for the time being. Qinzhan was brought up by Fei Chenxue since she was a child, and towards Qinzhan, Fei Chenxue has always regarded her as her own. Although the two are called brothers and sisters, they are more like mother and son. If the other party kidnapped Qinzhan, concubine Chenxue would naturally be in a mess. This time it was different from Qinzhan's order to raid the Qingwei Taoist sect. When Qinzhan sneaked up on the Qingwei Taoist sect, his own strength had already reached the world realm, which was comparable to Yi Qianqi's strength. With Qinzhan's strength, even if the raid failed, he would have no problem escaping for his life. But this time is different. Qinzhan was captured by Yuanshan Daojun, and the opponent's strength far surpassed Qinzhan. If concubine Chenxue did not agree to the opponent's request, she was sure that Qinzhan would definitely die. In desperation, Fei Chenxue could only agree temporarily. Who is he, what is his strength, and where is he now? Chen Daoxian asked 3 questions in a row. The person sent by the other party is named Xian Yi, wearing black armor. He is the 2nd-level Taoist of the world. Concubine Chanxue paused. He is now at your Chan house. After arresting Qin Zhan, he swaggered to live in Chen's house. He thought that the other party knew about the marriage of Chen Daoxian and concubine Qinxue. Right. The story of Chen Daoxian and Fei Chanxue getting married has long been spread all over Wan Xinghai. The other party knew about this and it was reasonable. Now that the other party is doing this, it is to clearly tell Chen Daoxian that concubine Chengshu's master is going to be fixed. And Yu Huangzhong is a dowry. If it were an ordinary nascent soul true monarch, facing this kind of enemy, he could only recognize it by pinching his nose. But Chen Daoxian is not. Not to mention that he now has a Taoist team that is comparable to the 3rd-layer Taoist in the world. Even if Chen Daoxian has nothing, he dares to ask the other party to let go. Even if the 2nd-level Daojun of the mere world realm is stronger than him, he is not unsure about joining forces with concubine Qinxue. After all, Chen Daoxian's Dao realm is the same as the other parties, and the only difference is the gap between the two. But Chen Daoxian has a lot of cards, and if he fights to the death, he is not without a chance. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian was a little fortunate. He was fortunate that he had chosen to buy a Taoist team instead of Tianhua Yulu, otherwise, he would have to fight the opponent himself now. To be honest, although Chen Daoxian has a little bit of confidence, he is not very confident. In particular, the other party's Dao realm is the same as his. Chen Daoxian knew the location of the other party, turned around and left without saying a word. Fei Qinxue grabbed him and shook her head with red eyes. Don't go to death. Chen Daoxian slowly turned his head, stared at her, and said coldly, I'm going to kill. Say it. Chen Daoxian's figure instantly disappeared in front of her. Watching Chen Daoxian leave, Fei Qinxue couldn't sit still any longer, and immediately turned into a light and flew towards Cangzhou. Fei Qinxue did not comprehend the laws of space, so she could only fly away. Chen Daoxian did not have this trouble. His current range of divine consciousness has reached more than 30,000 miles, and the distance of each teleportation is almost equal to the range covered by divine consciousness. In other words, he can now teleport more than 30,000 miles at a time. And Qianyuan Jianzong Zongmen is only 1,000,000 miles away from Cangzhou. If you perform teleportation, you only need a few dozen times, and you will be able to arrive. Continuously teleport dozens of times. Chen Daoxian finally set foot on the boundary of Guang'an Prefecture. Looking at the familiar scenery in front of him, Chen Daoxian couldn't care to appreciate it. The figure flashed and disappeared again. Twin Lakes Island. Patriarch Immortal Mansion. A black-armored cultivator sat on the stone bench. Beside him sat a pale young cultivator, not Qin Zhan or anyone else. I advise you to stop struggling. Although you and I are both in the world, your Dao realm is 1 level worse than mine, and your cultivation is even worse by a big realm. Do you still want to run? Humph. The black-armored cultivator snorted coldly, and then persuaded, I know that your talent is good. If your sister and brother are loyal to my young master, breaking through the primordial spirit period is just around the corner. Aye. The black-armored cultivator was about to continue his persuasion. Suddenly, he sensed something and stood up abruptly, looking at the air ahead. Next moment, 100 feet in front of him, the space quickly fluctuated like a stream of water. Immediately afterwards, a figure appeared in an instant. Seeing the person coming, Qin Zhan's expression brightened. But then Qin Zhan's complexion collapsed because he found that Chen Daoxian did not break through to the Yuanshan stage. Although his cultivation has improved a lot, he is only the same as him, only in the late Yuanying period. Chen Daoxian, run! Qin Zhan shouted. 7,017 K. Chapter 440. Chen Daoxian turned a deaf ear to Qin Zhan's warning. He stared straight at the black-armored cultivator, and said coldly, You are Xian Yi Xiao Yuhua's dog? Xiao Yuhua was the direct disciple of Wuji Xianmen, who wanted to forcefully marry his concubine Chan Shui, and when Emperor Yes Bell. It was rumored that he had the strength of a Taoist on the 3rd or 4th floor of the world. Chen Daoxian doesn't know the specific realm, but there is absolutely no 5th layer of the world realm. As for the black-armored cultivator in front of him, his strength is much weaker. He is only a second-level Taoist in the world. With the team of 5 Taoist soldiers in his hand, Qian Daoxian was confident of winning against him. Therefore, in the face of Qin Zhan's warning, he was naturally indifferent. The black-armored cultivator looked at Qian Daoxian and said slowly, "You are Qian Daoxian, and you have only reached the second level of the world realm in the late Yuaning cultivation base. I have to say that this little one Xinghai is really capable. Actually, let me meet 2 talented geniuses in a row." The other genius in his mouth was naturally Fei Chunxue, who had also reached the second floor of the world realm. It is not uncommon to see a true monarch on the first level of the world realm in Wuji Xianmen. Even the black-armored cultivator himself first reached the first level of the world realm, and then broke through to the primordial spirit stage. The second-level real monarch of the world realm is different. Being able to reach the second level of the world realm at the nascent soul cultivation realm meant that the cultivator had a very high level of comprehension, so he could comprehend the Tao so smoothly. This also means that the cultivator has a high potential. At least in the eyes of Wuji Xianmen, once this kind of monk breaks through to the Yuanshan stage in the future, it is a sure thing to reach the third layer of the world realm, and even this kind of monk is very likely to become the fifth layer of the world realm. Daojun. As for whether he can achieve the Daojun of the creation realm or even the heavenly venerate, it depends on the cultivator's own fortune. After all, every transcending tribulation heavenly venerate can support a top power. The existence of this level is no longer a gift that can be achieved. Even if it is a genius like Chen Daoxian, outsiders only think that he has a great chance to become the Tianzuan of transcending tribulations, but no one can guarantee that he will definitely become the Tianzuan of transcending tribulations. In Wuji Xianmen, once any nascent soul cultivator can break through to the second floor of the world, he will be established as a direct disciple, and the status is equal to the elder of Wuji Xianmen. This is why, although Gu Lian's cultivation is only at the third level of the world realm, he can become the guardian of the teleportation array of the 2 realms abyss. The second level real monarch of the world can be established as a direct disciple of the Wuji Xianmen, and the third level real monarch of the world can imagine how much the Wuji Xianmen has a treasure. Don't look at Xiao Ye's incarnation as a direct disciple of Wuji Xianmen, and he is arrogant when facing a second-rate sect like Qianyuan Jianzong, but he is really not enough to look at a genius like Ge Leiyun. Facing Ge Leiyun, Qian Daoxian did not have much psychological weakness, let alone Xiao Yuhua. The lackey of a direct disciple of Wuji Xianmen? Stop talking nonsense, you can't use it here if you have the guts. Go to the endless void with me, Qian Daoxian said, and with a tear, a void black hole with a diameter of about 10 meters appeared in front of him. Immediately after, he stepped forward and walked into the void black hole. The black-armored cultivator naturally wouldn't feel afraid when facing a nascent soul cultivator, not to mention that the nascent soul cultivator's Dao realm was comparable to him. Even if Qian Daoxian holds the pure yang immortal artifact, how much power can he exert with his cultivation? Therefore, the black-armored cultivator was not afraid at all. As for the treasures of Taoist guards like Taoist soldiers, it is not that the black-armored cultivator has not considered it, but the price of Taoist soldiers is so high. Not to mention Qian Daoxian, even his master has not been able to gather a team of Dao soldiers so far. The other party is even more impossible. Wan Xinghai, a cultivator from a remote rural area, isn't even richer than his master, the protege of Wuji Xianmen. Right? The black-armored cultivator thought, shook his head mockingly, and tore it at will, and a void black hole with a diameter of several meters appeared in front of him. Before walking into the black hole of the void, the black-armored cultivator turned his head and warned Qin Zhan, "If you don't want me to step down the Qianyuan sword sect, just stay here." Hearing this, Qin Zhan clenched his fist tightly, his face changed wildly, and finally, he lowered his head unwillingly. Seeing Qin Zhan give in, the black-armored cultivator nodded with satisfaction and strode into the void black hole. As the black-armored cultivator stepped into it, the void black hole slowly closed and finally disappeared. Endless void darkness. Only the nearby Fengyun Great World exudes a splendid brilliance, reflecting on the faces of the 2. Qian Daoxian and the black-armored cultivator volleyed against each other. Looking at Qian Daoxian, the black-armored cultivator said slowly, "Although I don't know why you have the courage to challenge me, I will let you." Taoist. 1, 2, 3. The black armored cultivator looked at Chan Daoxian surrounded by the center, and there were 5 one-star soldiers, almost scared to the sky. Fellow Taoist, misunderstanding. It's all misunderstanding. The black armored cultivator stretched out his hands and stepped back unconsciously. I don't know which senior's disciple you are. I have offended you a lot this time, and I hope you will forgive me. The black armored cultivator no longer had the arrogant face he just had, and confessed on the spot. If it weren't for the shame, he would have wanted to kowtow to Chan Daoxian and apologize. Although the 5 Taoist soldiers in front of Chen Daoxian were only one-star Taoist soldiers, these 5 Taoist soldiers looked like a complete Taoist team. A complete Taoist team and a single Taoist soldier. The combat power that can erupt is completely different. Chen Daoxian's 5 Taoist soldiers were all inspired by 6th-order low-grade puppets. Perhaps the quality of the 5 6th-order low-grade puppets was limited, and the enlightened Taoist soldiers only reached the level of 1 star. 1-star Taoist soldiers, divided according to their strength, can only be compared to the first-level Taoist monks in the world, that is, the monks who have just broken through the Yuanshan period. Actually, whether it is a 1-star Taoist soldier or a 2-star Taoist soldier, the difference in strength is not too big. The real strength to widen the gap is the 3-star Taoist soldiers, whose strength is equivalent to the 3rd-level Taoist monk of the world of the human race monks. Of course, the price of Samsung Taoist soldiers is even higher. But after the efforts of countless refiners, they finally came up with another solution, that is, even if they don't have the strength of the 3-star Taoist soldiers, they can use the superposition of the formation and the number of Taoist soldiers to exert the strength comparable to the 3-star Taoist soldiers. This is the Taoist squad. In other words, the Taoist team in front of Chan Daoxian is almost as powerful as Xiao Yuhua. How can he dare to fight against a 2nd-level Taoist in the world? He came to carry out the master's orders, yes, but not to die. In front of him, Chan Daoxian was protected by this Taoist team, and even if he wanted to be beheaded, he couldn't do it. He carefully looked at the Taoist team in front of Chan Daoxian, and found that there were actually 2 Taoist soldiers inside, holding a diamond-shaped giant shield comparable to the size of a door. Obviously, these 2 Taoist soldiers were specially used to protect the master of the Taoist soldiers. I'm so afraid of death. The black armored cultivator cursed inwardly. A mere nascent soul cultivator, even if there is a Taoist squad, it is still a defensive Taoist squad. Generally speaking, there is only 1 Taoist soldier in a Taoist team dedicated to defense, while Chan Daoxian's Taoist team has 2. Is this not afraid of death? In the face of the black armor cultivators begging for mercy, Chan Daoxian was unmoved. He stretched out his hand and pointed at the black armored cultivator, and said, "Kill him." Hear the order. The nameless Taoist soldiers acted immediately. Of the 5 Taoist soldiers, 4 stayed where they were, and 1 directly held a giant sword and killed the black armored cultivator. See, the black armored cultivator knew that he couldn't be good today, so he stopped begging for mercy, and instead displayed the Dharma image, and his body grew rapidly. 100 zhang, 200 zhang, 300 zhang. In an instant, the black armored cultivator became a giant over 2,000 feet tall. This Taoist soldier who attacked with a sword was as small as an ant in front of the giant of more than 2,000 feet. But it was this ant that threatened the black armor cultivator with death. The black armored cultivator felt that the Taoist soldier who was killing him in front of him contained at least 90% of the power of the unknown Taoist soldier. This is the terrible thing about the Taoist squad, which can borrow each other's strength. Whether it is offense or defense, with the cooperation of the formation, it can skyrocket nearly 5 times. It is precisely because of this hand that the 1-star Taoist team can worthy of the strength of the 3-star Taoist. Escape. Can't resist. Seeing the soldier in front of him holding a giant sword as small as a toothpick, the black armored cultivator could no longer restrain his fear. Really? The sword of the offensive Taoist soldier swelled violently when it approached the body of the black armored cultivator. In an instant, the sword that was originally 7 feet long turned into a giant sword that was thousands of feet long. A Taoist soldier of normal size, holding a giant sword that is thousands of feet long. This scene is somewhat inconsistent. But in the hands of the offensive Taoist soldiers, this giant sword is like an embroidery needle, and it is extremely easy to use. Great swordsmanship. And it is a combination of great swordsmanship and melee combat. Chen Daoxian recognized the spell cast by this offensive Taoist soldier at a glance. Previously, Fairy Nishang of Chuanbao Pavilion said that Dao soldiers and ordinary monks are no different, and they are good at using various magic powers. It's just that Taoist soldiers, like ordinary monks, have limited energy, and there are often not many spells that they can specialize in, which is why the Taoist team was born later. In the face of this attack that was 5 times that of an ordinary 1-star Taoist soldier, the black-armored cultivator panicked instantly. Can't stop. His mind was madly warning, but in the face of this sword, his whole body seemed to be suppressed by a huge pressure, unable to move. This is... The black-armored cultivator lowered his head and looked at a Taoist soldier who surrounded Chen Daoxian in the center. It's a domain-type Taoist soldier. The black-armored cultivator's heart was bleak. Brush. The 1,000-foot-long giant sword slashed across the black-armored cultivator's head. His body of more than 2,000 feet was directly beheaded. The next moment, the Dharma image of the black-armored cultivator radiated countless light spots, and then dissipated. With just one sword, the Dharma image and body of the black-armored cultivator were severely damaged. See, the primordial spirit of the black-armored cultivator jumped suddenly and jumped out of his body. Compared with the nascent soul of the nascent soul cultivator, the primordial spirit of the black-armored cultivator is much larger, almost half his height. Not only that, Yuaning wandered outside the body for a long time, and there was a danger that the soul would collapse. But the cultivation base has reached the Yuanshan stage, and the soul has been transformed further, and it is already possible to achieve the imaginary wandering, and there is no more stagnation. However, the premise of Yuanshan cultivator wandering too far is that he has not encountered an enemy. Otherwise, without physical protection, the primordial spirit is actually very weak, at least, far from being an opponent of the same level of enemy. The black-armored cultivator has come to this step, but it is also helpless, because if he doesn't get out of his body, he will be hacked to death by this Taoist soldier with a sword. Although the body of the black-armored cultivator is strong, and even he is wearing a 6th-order low-grade spirit armor, he still can't stop the attack of the soldier in front of him. Too fierce. As expected of a guardian of the road, the black-armored cultivator screamed in his heart and fled frantically, but after escaping for a long time, he found himself spinning in place. The black-armored cultivator raised his head and found that around him, there was actually a river of light flowing rapidly. This is the power of time and space. As Yuanshan Daojun, his knowledge is not shallow. At a glance he recognized the long river of time and space displayed by Chen Daoxian with the help of the 9 palaces array. Compared with directly killing the enemy, it is a must to trap and defend the enemy in the Jiugong formation. Especially in the long river of time and space, Chen Daoxian just used it to surround the primordial spirit of the black-armored cultivator. No matter how the other party escaped, he could only spin around in the long river of time and space, which looked very funny. After trying various means, the black-armored cultivator finally gave up. He looked up at Chen Daoxian, his eyes were full of resentment, but he quickly subsided. Fellow Taoist, now that my body is destroyed, the anger in your heart should be out. Anyway, I am also a disciple of Wuji Xianmen, and Taoist does not want to be an enemy of Wuji Xianmen, right? The black-armored cultivator suppressed the anger in his heart and said calmly. In desperation, the black-armored cultivator could only move to the last backer. He knew that Xiao Yuhua could not be mentioned now, and he could only use Wuji Xianmen as an example. He hoped that the other party would forgive him once for the sake of Wuji Xianmen disciple. Sure enough, after Chen Daoxian heard this, he ordered the soldiers to stop. Seeing Chen Daoxian stop attacking, the black-armored cultivator breathed a sigh of relief. Since there is an expert behind you, Taoist friend, we have admitted it this time, and Taoist friend, don't worry, this time I came to Wan Xinghai, but I came here under the secret order of the master. Outsiders do not know that Qianyuan Jianzong owns the pure yang immortal artifact. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian said calmly, how did you know that my Qianyuan sword sect has a pure yang fairy weapon? It's what Yi Tianqi, the leader of the Xianqing Dao Alliance, said. The black-armored cultivator sold Yi Tianqi on the spot. In fact, he hated each other so much now that if he hadn't provided information indiscriminately, he wouldn't have ended up in the field where he is today. The physical body is destroyed. Even if he finds a way to reunite the physical body in the future, the road has basically come to an end. The road is destroyed. How can the black armored cultivator not hate it? To say who he hates the most now, the number one is naturally Chen Daoxian, who destroyed his body, and the second is Yi Tianqi. Yi Tianqi. Chen Daoxian nodded. Understood, you can die. Fellow Taoists, wait. I saw a black flame like ink, flying straight into the long river of time and space, burning the primordial spirit of the black armored cultivator. Although the opponent's soul has undergone a transformation, it is no longer afraid of ordinary damage. But Chen Daoxian's fire of gods and demons is not ordinary. As early as when he had just refined the indestructible true meaning, the demon god's fire was comparable to the infant fire. Now that Chen Daoxian's physical body has stepped into the threshold of condensing the indestructible real body with 1 foot, the fire of the devil has been further strengthened. Chen Daoxian even found that there was a little purple light in the center of the fire of the devil, which could not be seen clearly. It can be seen that the power of his demon god's fire has skyrocketed by another level. Using this kind of spiritual fire to burn the primordial spirit of the black armored cultivator, there is no reason for the other party not to lose his soul. The screams only lasted for a few breaths. The black armored cultivator Xian Yi was completely wiped out. Turning his head and looking at the body of the black armored cultivator floating in the void, Chen Daoxian once again controlled the fire of the devil, burning it out little by little. This time the fire of the demon god was burning much slower. After a full cup of tea, the black armored cultivator's body was burnt clean by him. 7017K, you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.